Chapter 13:28. It was not a long time ago, and only two things happened. The first was the awakening of Sua, the Most High, and fighting his way to the middle plane. The second was when Yun Nuashing and Hui awakened the consciousness of the scepter, and escaped with the Most High. The scepter then used the energy they left in the Land of Hope to cleanse the abyssal death shroud that had taken root in the Sua continent. Well, after that, when we left, we only did a cursory inspection. Because of the lack of time, we didn't check it seriously. We just put up a fake world core that automatically detects and shields it. At that time, Sua was accidentally thrown into the void by me, far away from the place where the abyssal death mist exploded and gathered, so I thought that there shouldn't be any problems. You can probably guess what happened after that. Yun Nuashing briefly explained what happened back then, and everyone let out a long oh. So in the end, it was actually the consciousness of the scepter that did not cleanse the abyssal death shroud from the Sua continent. Yi Shi directly stated the reason. Well, that is still Sua's own fate. The sacred deity only shook her head and sighed, and did not show any other expression. In the end, it is just our Sua continent's bad luck. The Most High in Sua was a heavenly god of the fifth sky of origins, and the scepter he left still had a lot of energy. That was why we were a little relieved. After all, the abyssal death shroud of Sua was not very powerful at the time, and under the combined efforts of 4 or 5 heavenly gods and 1 heavenly god of origins, it was reasonable to say that all of the abyssal death shroud in this world should have been completely cleansed. But why is there still a part of it left? Well, I don't understand at the moment, Yun Nuashing shrugged. It is all in the past, and it is useless for me to go back and change it now. He floated to the sacred god's side and picked up the fragment. It's already lost all its energy, but I can still feel the other fragments scattered in the corners of Sua. However, there's no point in collecting them. At this moment, these fragments are much harder than ordinary materials. Yun Nuashing held the shards in his left hand, and waved his right hand at the space before him. Suddenly, the dust on the Sua continent exploded, and the energy wave rushed thousands of feet into the sky. The huge protruding top suddenly spewed out a wave of dust, and a shard the size of a palm swept out and disappeared into the horizon. The dust pillar that was lifted up slowly sank to the ground and reverberated. As he waved his hand, the Sua continent seemed to revolve according to his will, and astonishing earthquakes occurred everywhere. Fortunately, the remaining life on the Sua continent was already floating in the sky. Otherwise, who knew how many lives would be affected by his action? The fragments that flew from all corners of Sua arrived in the hall almost simultaneously. Yun Nuashing waved his hand, and the fragments emerged from the space and slowly stopped. It felt like a long time had passed, but from the moment Ziyen and the others saw him waving his hand to the moment the fragments burst out of the space, only a dozen seconds had passed. The sudden appearance of the fragments even startled Ziyen and the others. These are all the remains of the sacred weapon. The sacred deity's eyes widened. He didn't expect Yun Nuashing to be able to collect all the shards of the scepter so easily. Every corner of this world is in my sight. Finding these things is as easy as finding 2 scars on my body. Yun Nuashing said casually as he looked at the shards. Under the guidance of his energy, the 11 shards had begun to quickly reassemble. 10 seconds later, the shards were arranged in order, but they had not yet been pieced together. It looked as if they had just shattered in front of him. Well, there really isn't any energy left. Yun Nuashing shrugged. With a squeeze of his hand, the 11 shards were pieced together from top to bottom. Dark red energy surged from the cracks, completely mending them. The scepter that he had seen before appeared in front of him again. Dozens of eras have passed. It feels like it happened yesterday, but it's not a very distant time to me. When I first saw it, the scepter was almost half destroyed, but at least its consciousness still existed. It could tell me things that I couldn't see. After so many years, Even its consciousness has completely shattered. Yun Nuoshing received the scepter with both hands and studied it for a while. After confirming that there was no trace of energy left, he shook his head with a sigh and handed it to the sacred deity. Keep it well. This is the scepter of your ancestor. Although you don't know him and history doesn't remember him, he is one of the few people in this void who I respect and feel pity for. At least, there are people in this void who remember his existence. This is what I want to tell you. The sacred deity's hands trembled as he received the scepter from Yun Nuoshing. He had once fantasized about using this saint weapon to end everything, but now it seemed that it was just a carrier of countless eras. It had already fought for many years and no longer had any energy left. All that was left was a perhaps unforgettable history that needed to be recorded by future generations. I will try to find that lost history, the sacred deity solemnly said. That's your problem. Yun Nuoshing turned around and waved his hand. He raised his head to look at the crystal that was emitting a faint purple light and narrowed his eyes. Now, it's time to deal with the trouble of this era. The sacred deity abruptly recovered from his excitement and joy and solemnly looked at Yun Nuoshing. You found the anomaly on the Suja continent. Rather than saying that I found it, it's better to say that my guess has been confirmed. After all, I already had that guess when I first came to this world. Yun Nuoshing narrowed his eyes slightly, and the color of the crystal inadvertently deepened a lot. It exists in this world, but it is not in any corner of the space of this world, then it can only be in the concept layer of rules. It was as if something was spying on the void, just like how he could see the entire world at a glance. Something was also monitoring all the movements in this world. When he said this, the huge crystal that was emitting a gradually deepening purple light suddenly turned red, and an ear-piercing alarm suddenly sounded throughout the floating island. As if a beacon fire was being transmitted, when the floating island at the center of the battlefield sounded an alarm, the floating island only 10 miles away hesitated for a dozen seconds before a sharp whistle sounded as well. A blood-red beam of light shot straight into the sky. This is the highest level of alarm. The divine stone of all souls has sensed an extremely powerful will of destruction. The sacred deity looked at the crystal, and his eyes widened until his pupils almost disappeared. In the inherited memories, only the decisive battle from 1,000 years ago had such a reaction. Hey, do you know the truth? Yun Nuoshing did not seem to see the blood-red beam of light. Across the entire Suya continent, all the floating islands had the same red beam of light, and the blood-red light dyed the sky into a sunset scene. If I have to say, the Suya continent may have already become a thing of the past during the Dark Age. Yun Nuoshing looked at the crystal as his shadow tidied up his robe, and looked straight at the delicate face with an expressionless face. The destruction had already appeared. In the abyssal death mist, on the day the underworld saw this world, the destruction of this world was already an established fact. The Supreme of Suya had sacrificed everything to delay the fact of destruction by one step. That's right, he also did not have the ability to get rid of those, because when he killed his way into the underworld, he had already ended. Hui and I's arrival had awakened the backup defense he left in the Land of Hope, activating the scepter and delaying the second destruction once again. Yun Nuoshing grabbed a strand of hair that had fallen in front of her and threw it behind her back. Your resistance, over countless years, had delayed and weakened the destruction step by step. The decisive battle 1,000 years ago was nothing more than a measure to release a flood. Whenever this world had reached its limit, it would need to be released. Before the will of destruction engulfed this world, your resistance would forcefully delay it, stubbornly refusing to let go. Perhaps, according to the original script, there would be a day of success. Unfortunately, even if this world was sealed by my barrier, it would still change along with the changes in the rules of the void, slowly weakening. I don't know how you had lived through the thousands and thousands of eras before, but that should be another tragic history, a tragic history. Even if your world had regressed along with the void, from the origin God to the heavenly God, and then to the post-divine saint, perhaps until there were only 1 or 2 mortal lives left, the resistance would not end. Time had caused this world to forget too many things that no one cared about, too many things that could not be touched. Perhaps when you could not touch the concept plane of order, the defeat of the order plane had already been decided. It was just that all of you had been delaying that moment of defeat. Just like right now, all of you do not know what is happening in the depths of this world. Yun Nuoxing's narrowed eyes turned from black to dark red. A dark red energy pillar that resembled a stream of air erupted from his body and pierced through the sky. Within the dark red energy, there was a trace of silver-black energy. The two seemed to have fused into one in his body, and an inexplicable change occurred once again. Don't come over. This is a battle between those at the pinnacle of the origin realm. I will do my best not to affect this world. It will be very dangerous for all of you to come over, Yun Nuoxing said without turning his head. His figure began to float along the dark red energy pillar into the sky. Zai narrowed his eyes and stared at the giant blood-red crystal. The darkness that slumbered in time has slowly awakened because of his arrival. This is a battle that transcends countless eras. The gods have their own battlefields to deal with, and the mortals also have their own calamities to deal with. Zai murmured. Suddenly, he roared at the Xing deity. Stop daydreaming and get ready. No, there is no need for any preparations. Do whatever you need to do right now. The Xing deity's mind was muddled by the shock that came at the same time today. At this moment, she was at a loss. What should we do? The gods have their own battles, and the reality space naturally has its own battlefields, just like that battle 1,000 years ago. You inheritors should have already been prepared to give your all, right? Zai said in a low voice. The Xing deity immediately reacted and nodded. If that's the case, I understand. The end of the era is today. The eternally unchanging darkness of the concept level of the rules began to distort. Dark red energy was stirring wildly in this place. Strange energy phenomena appeared from the gap between this level and the real world. Fragmented images appeared on both sides of the space at the same time. And in this darkness, a shadow was gradually emerging. The huge shadow was like a clump of mud that was attached to the world itself. It was slowly crawling out from the shattering. A large area was illuminated by the light of the energy phenomenon. Like a viscous liquid, it fused into a clump and gathered from all directions, just like what he saw in the world of the altar. So that's how it is. It is evenly spread throughout the concept layer of the Suja continent. No wonder it could not be found. Even back then, the barrier that was left behind seems to have sealed it together with Suja. The corner of Yun Nuoxing's eyes twitched when she came to the concept layer of laws and saw the scene. The world that existed beside the core was indeed not as normal as it appeared on the surface. This huge abyssal death mist spawn, the remnant spawn, was just an energy that had not been completely wiped out in the beginning. The weak energy that it left behind turned into a destructive echo that was the will of destruction that continued to affect this world, growing continuously until today. He saw a lot of images from the big guy that was gradually fusing into a ball. The distant world, the starry sky, the still void, the broken stars in the galaxy, and all kinds of scenes of destruction. Those seemed to be the records of the Suja continent drifting in the void for dozens of eras. Just like the malice and evil thoughts they conveyed, they were deeply engraved in the big guy's memory. Such a large number, and such a familiar presence. I can't let the underworld of this era sense your presence. Otherwise, the eightfold realm will be in trouble again. Yun Nuoxing covered his head and chuckled a few times. The red light in his eyes skyrocketed. Hundreds of billions of magic circles appeared in the space beside him, swallowing and spitting extremely terrifying energy from the beginning. I can only ask you to go back to those eras. The violent energy tore through the concept layer of laws and poured a long river of energy into the black quagmire. He had suffered a loss last time, and this time, he did not intend to wait until the other party had completely gathered. The seemingly endless energy poured into the concept layer of laws. The laws of the Suja continent had been repelled by him to other places. Now, the space that he had circled was just an empty battlefield. And it seemed that he was not the only one with such a defense. The monster that had not yet gathered together was also using his energy to protect the concept layer of laws. But he did not think that it was because it had stayed in this world for too long that it had developed feelings for it. Perhaps it still needed the energy of this world, so it did such a thing? The wriggling black sludge that was constantly gathering in the conceptual layer of the rules was riddled with holes by the countless energy poke. It looked a little disgusting. Yun Nuoshing felt that it was actually not damaged at all. The black mist that was gathering from the surroundings was still increasing, which made him feel a little strange. In the past, it was not that he had not dealt with the abyssal death mist derivative that had not yet formed, but why did this guy give him a feeling that he could not kill it? With a wave of his hand, the endless magic circles gathered energy that was enough to shatter the land of nothingness. Yun Nuoshing looked at the huge body that was constantly emerging. He narrowed his eyes and watched the injuries that he had just caused to it slowly disappear. He hesitated for a moment, waved his hand, and the magic circles disappeared into the void. He then grabbed the Netherworld Ruins sword. "Then I'd like to see what you want to do. Deity, there is an abnormal distortion in this space, and it seems to be spreading into the distance." Yun Nuoshing was just about to gather energy when he heard the words of the barrier's consciousness. He could not help but be stunned. Looking at the distance of the concept layer of laws, he did see something that was not quite right emerging. There is a suspected phantom derivative appearing. Those are the energies of the derivatives that have appeared in various dimensions of the Suya continent. They have a heavy aura of time and the aura of the Suyans themselves. Yun Nuoshing's expression changed slightly, and he looked up. Where is the heart of the world of Suya? Right in front. The specific location is inside that big guy's body. Yun Nuoshing could not help but express his shock. He did not expect that the remaining death mist of the abyss could eat the heart of the world of Sua after dozens of eras of growth. It was not easy to say that it ate it, but it should be said that it assimilated it. In other words, this body was Sua. Every time the world needed to release the flood, to carry out the final battle, the destruction caused by the final battle, if there was no accident, should all be borne by that phantom. At the edge of the law and concept layer of chaos, the darkness was already in a state of distortion and chaos. Large expanses of energy phenomena were blooming and illuminating the true appearance of this space. There were countless crisscrossing auras of black clouds that seemed to have condensed into a canopy that shrouded the space above, and strange black stars were faintly visible in the distance. This space had become a grotesque hodgepodge, and the presence of Sua could no longer be felt. Chaotic shadows were emerging from the nothingness. The colossal abyssal death mist spawn, the human life tainted with a black aura, and the shadows of the lives of Sua who had died in the destruction of the past. Seeing this scene, Yun Nuoshing's sword-wielding hand trembled slightly. The shadows that emerged from the nothingness all opened a pair of gray and empty eyes after a few seconds of pause. The chaotic aura condensed into one. At this moment, there seemed to be hundreds of heavenly gods of origin and countless heavenly god-tier life forms staring at Yun Nuoshing. It made his cheeks twitch slightly. And with a roar from the abyssal death mist derivatives, those distorted and grotesque things swarmed out like soulless ghosts and rushed towards the most obvious person in the concept layer of the concept layer. Large-scale energy fluctuations confirmed. The amount is unknown. The stability of the void is continuing to decline. This space may be banished into the depths of the void. Then help me stabilize this void. Yun Nuoshing let go of the nether void sword in his hand, and the celestial sword, abyssal sword, time sand sword, and crimson star sword all appeared around him. The endless formations that had been hidden in the void once again entered the battlefield with violent energy. The aura that felt like it could split the heavens and earth apart caused the trembling space to collapse. Just the shock waves of the energy alone reduced the abyssal death mist to dust. Come, let's end this battle that has lasted for dozens of eras in this prison. Chapter 1329. Enormous torrents of energy streaked across the sky with dazzling light, landing in places where the naked eye could not reach. The energy flashes seemed to fall into an abyss and did not move at all. All that could be seen were strange black and scarlet dots of light. The entire sky was filled with this inexplicable strangeness and boundless darkness. Moreover, it was not as simple as it seemed. Just 2 minutes ago, a battleship had left the fleet and flown less than a kilometer before suddenly disappearing. Although the life signs of the people on the ship could still be felt and they knew that they were still alive, they had already disappeared from this world. To be more specific, everyone had disappeared. The originally imposing battleship was now left alone in the sky, flying alone under the dark and scarlet sky. The giant bird-like spaceship automatically opened an energy barrier, but as far as the eyes could see, there was nothing that could be considered an enemy. The only thing that could be felt was that this world seemed to be enveloped by a layer of faint hostility. What the hell is going on in this world? Old Wu stood on the deck of the spaceship and watched this scene. He could feel the inexplicable malice in the wind blowing against him and could not help but shiver. What the hell is going on in this world? I've never seen anything like this before. Old man, I'm sorry to tell you that I don't know what's going on either. The sacred deity stood beside him and patted him on the shoulder to calm him down. Then, he said to the others, "Pay attention to all the strange phenomena in this space. There's a strong malice here, and it's hard to guarantee that there won't be any real malice that will attack us. Maintain contact with the other spaceship. From the looks of it, space has been isolated and the connection between souls has been slightly disrupted. However, there will always be a gap. Try to connect with your own people first. As for the Protectorate, no, I suspect that the entire world has fallen into this strange phenomenon." The sacred deity frowned and turned to look at Zai and the others. "Do any of you know anything?" The group of girls all shook their heads. Ming pointed upwards. "Big Brother might know something, but he's in the conceptual layer of laws. This layer of space can't be torn apart by energy. We seem to have fallen into multiple layers of space, and are trapped in this place. However, this space is open to us." Zai stood on the edge of the spaceship and muttered, "If there's no other way, let's move forward. There will always be a way. Wait, something's coming out." As she cried out, everyone turned their gazes. Under the cover of the dark curtain of chaos, the space before them was violently churning like a pot of boiling oil. Bubbles rose from below and countless strangely shaped black clouds floated below like shadows, condensing into physical entities in this space. They were just black balls, but moments later, they transformed into disgusting monsters that could make anyone vomit their New Year's Eve dinner just by looking at them. They had wings, but no wings. No, there were some with faces, some without heads, some with rotting flesh, and some like deep-sea monsters. However, without exception, they were all shrouded in black clouds that were so black that they could probably dye the sea black in 3 seconds if thrown into the sea. Xian's face twitched slightly. "I've dealt with them once in Mount Fengyan." Little Star said that it was a derivative of the void mist. "But no matter how many times I see it, it's disgusting." "The void mist?" Zai shook her head and sighed. "That's not what it's called in the last few dozen eras. It should be the abyssal death mist that's even more powerful than the void mist. Although the two are essentially the same, they leave a trail of ink behind them wherever they go, just like an octopus." While they were discussing, the saint deity had already given the order to attack with all their might. Instantly, a powerful energy burst out from the giant bird. The energy barrier rippled like water, and after a moment's delay, millions of energy torrents tore through space and swept towards the strange derivative that had emerged from the bottom of the world. Although this was the first time the people of this generation of Suya had seen such a strange thing, they could tell at a glance that it was definitely not something good. Moreover, it was emitting overflowing malice towards them, so there was nothing to say. Just fight. This was the second time Xian and the others had seen the way the Suyans fought, but the last time they were watching from afar, they were in a hurry and did not get a good look. Now they truly saw the difference between the way this world fought and the way the gods fought. She could not think of a good description, but it was probably like riding on a strange bird-like fortress and charging towards the enemy. The way the Suyans fought was completely different from the individual battles and formations of the god. The Suyans also fought one-on-one, but they would not directly rush forward with their blades before truly engaging in close combat. The abyssal death mist manifestation was as powerful as it had been dozens of eras ago. Back then, it was said that a single abyssal death mist manifestation could take down a world, and even these shining cannon fodders that had split off were not so easy to deal with. When the hundreds of thousands of energy torrents converged into one and were about to touch the abyssal death mist manifestation, a layer of black energy that swayed like flames suddenly rose and blocked most of the energy torrents. Less than 3/10 of the abyssal death mist manifestation rushed into it and exploded into a powerful energy storm, destroying swathes of cannon fodders. To the abyssal death mist manifestation that had drowned the world, that was only a small portion. The energy contained within is probably enough to push the entire battlefield back and forth dozens of times. The saint deity stared at the dark region and looked into its depths. There are actually several existences with auras similar to mine. Is this the abyssal death mist that Lord Heavenly God spoke of? That's only a small portion. A dark red flame surged in Zai's eyes. She saw the true appearance of this world. The spaceships that had been forcibly separated from the battlefield seemed to be facing such a huge army. The real number is dozens, hundreds of times more than what you see. Old Wu, the saint deity, and the others heard this and their expressions were unusually solemn. Is this Sua's greatest danger? Since this day has come, there is nothing to worry about. Xian looked at them and silently walked to one side, shouting in his soul. Little star, can you see the situation here? We. Roar. Bang. Crash. Xian was stunned for a moment. Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a strange sound. Zai and the others also heard it and were stunned for a moment, looking at each other. Buzz 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 buzz. The sound of energy torrents slicing through the sky, which sounded like lightning, thunder, and surging sword energy, rang out in his mind. It was also mixed with Yun Nuoshing's overly excited and crazy laughter. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Do you think you can fight against me with mere numbers? Billions of energy circles flickered violently at the same time, with all energy radiance converging from the edge into the 6 unimaginably massive circles. In no time at all, there were boundless thunderbolts, surging starlight, endless pillars of flame and many other energies pouring down, stirring a wild and chaotic energy storm in the conceptual layer of rules. With each flash of energy, innumerable abyssal death mist spawns would be reduced to dust, and with each of them falling, more would appear from the void. But at this rate, the Dark Army would not hold out for long before it was completely wiped out by Yun Nuoshing. Rumble, the urgent situation here seemed to affect the situation in the real world. Thunderous booms reverberated between heaven and earth, and under that monstrous malice, Xian and the others also felt a similar degree of urgency. The Dark Army in the distance seemed to be affected by this urgency, as they roared and charged toward the battlefield's spaceship. Little star, over here. Xian gritted her teeth and continued to call out. All right, I heard you. There's nothing to do, just do whatever you want. I'm busy over here. A somewhat distracted and impatient voice came from Yun Nuoshing's side, and then he turned off the soul communication. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other blankly. It seemed a little different from the him they were familiar with. Xian didn't quite understand either. In her impression, Yun Nuoshing would never say something like this, unless there was some change that they didn't understand. Just as she was puzzled, a rustling sound came from their souls again. This time, it seemed that Yun Nuoshing had turned on the soul communication. Xian and the others hurriedly focused and heard a series of ghostly cries in their souls. It seemed to be the screams of those ghosts and monsters, as well as the loud sounds of various energy explosions. Xian? Is it Xian? Yun Nuoshing's weak voice came from the other side. These incoherent words made Xian's heart palpitate. She hurriedly said, "Little star? What's going on over there? You just… it's nothing." Yun Nuoshing laughed dryly. The countless arrays around him were still roaring. He glanced at the big guy behind him that was about to take shape and smiled awkwardly. "I thought it was the Dark Age. I thought someone was calling me, so I didn't react for a moment." "How can you be so distracted when fighting a battle?" Zai's face darkened. Yun Nuoshing said helplessly, "Because I was at the peak of reciprocity. In the future, I stood at the peak of Heavenly God, and then I became weaker bit by bit. But at least I still remember what it felt like to be a post-god, but the difference between Heavenly God and reciprocity is too great. I only have the memory of being at reciprocity in the Dark Age, and I just happened to run into the endless abyss death mist of that era, so my memory was distorted." Xian and the others looked at each other and sighed softly. They felt heartache and helplessness. "That guy, Sai, he was just that kind of guy. Alright, I forgive you. We're now…" Zai waved her hand and quickly explained what had happened. During their delay, the Dark Army had approached the ship. The dark clouds and fog showed signs of separating and surrounding the ship, which made Zai's tone a little hurried. Yun Nuoshing pondered for a moment and looked in the direction of the present world. "I did see some kind of energy trace. It seems to only be used to separate space. Oh, but even if you tear down the space barrier, it seems like the trouble will only become bigger because there's also a large dark army in the other layers of space that have been separated." Xian quickly shook her head. "The enemy is not stupid. They wouldn't do something that would weaken their own forces. There must be a reason for isolating the people of the war zone and the forces stationed in this world. It's just that we can't think of it now." Yun Nuoshing agreed with the idea as soon as the thought crossed her mind. "Girl, I agree with the latter part of your sentence, but I don't agree with the first part." Xian, Abyssal death mist spawns. They don't have any intelligence. They only have combat and destruction instincts. Their brains are a mess. If they're not stupid, what are they? Xian, Zai, and the others. Ahem, alright, I'll stop joking. I'll help you break the barrier. Oh, it's almost time for the final battle here. As the abyssal death mist in the concept layer of rules is collapsing faster, they will definitely accelerate in the present world as well. You must be careful. Xian nodded as she listened to his solemn warning. You're the one, be careful. Don't hurt yourself. Yun Nuoshing casually replied. Just as she was about to smile, she saw a black thing rushing in front of her. Her face that had just pulled up a faint smile instantly turned cold. The dark red thing that was hanging behind her flashed rapidly before her eyes and split into thousands of pieces in an instant before dispersing into dust. Seriously, disturbing my sleep. It's rare for me to return to this era for a few days of peace, but you lot just had to come out and put on a show. He took a deep breath and stretched his right hand forward lazily. His palm that was facing downwards slowly turned. His eyes flashed as his right hand abruptly lifted up. Boom! The energy shockwaves that were scattered in the concept layer of rules all gathered into a single spot, turning into a gigantic beam of chaotic energy that was millions of miles wide. It shot straight towards the barrier that sealed the concept layer of rules and poured into the void. The abyssal death mist spawns that were drowned by the energy beam all rapidly melted and disintegrated into ashes within seconds. After the energy beam disappeared, streaks of black mist swept towards the huge block behind her like sand in the wind. It was as if the latter had devoured the energy of those weaker spawns, but that was its energy in the first place. I really hope that you lot could be quieter. Yun Nuoshing breathed a long sigh and leaned on the space behind her with her arms crossed. Every second is fine. I more or less hope that returning here would make me feel a little more at ease. You guys who ruin other people's holidays. Be it the Dark Age or this era, you've always been like this. You're just adding to my troubles. You're really annoying. Yun Nuoshing's eyes turned dark red, then she slowly closed them. Under the dark and scarlet sky, the giant bird flying in the sky extended its own energy barrier. Streaks of surging energy attached themselves to the energy barrier, forming a continuous sea of energy that poured into the black mist in front of them. It was as if they were looking at a sparkling waterfall that was coming towards them. Old Wu stood on the top of the giant bird. His urgent roar was accompanied by a series of orders, causing the war machine to operate at full speed. The battle between the power of order and the power of chaos was sealed in this space. The protection of order with all its might, and the irrational and crazy Dark Army. Everything that he saw was very similar to the scenes that he had seen in the Dark Age. They fought against the order of chaos and that power. However, the stage back then was the entire Eight Elements realm and the entire Deyuan realm. Now, dozens of eras later, the stage was only on one planet, one world. It was as if even they were suppressed by the rules of the void. He saw many scenes. The ship that Xian and the others were on was one of them. There were also other people in this space, people from other battlefields and even more Dark Army. The former seemed to have never changed their direction and purpose. They were always heading towards one place, and the Dark Army also appeared at the right time to stop them. It was as if they were trying to protect something and were stopping them. Boom! A loud bang suddenly rang out in the sky. Countless people looked up in astonishment. A huge crack seemed to have appeared in the sky. Then, a pair of huge dark red eyes appeared in the crack. Distorted light and scenes filled the surroundings of the crack. In the gap of the crack, they could vaguely see a dark and endless space, where inexplicable objects were slowly condensing. The pair of eyes casually swept across the world and lingered for a few seconds. Then, they slowly closed and the crack disappeared. Then, there was another chaotic roar, and this time, everyone saw that the space was full of cracks. Even the dark tide was filled with cracks like something in a mirror. After a moment of delay, a dazzling light burst out from the crack. A series of cracking sounds swept across the sky, and the whole sky became extremely dazzling. What's going on? Old Wu covered his eyes and hurriedly issued an order to calm everyone in his panic. When the light faded, he abruptly opened his eyes and was stunned. Several dozen giant bird-like spaceships had appeared in the sky. They were spaceships from the battle arena, but some of them were already damaged from the fierce battle. Whether they could continue to fight was another question. Speaking of the battle, he was about to remind everyone to be vigilant when he saw the sacred god standing beside him and letting out a long sigh of relief. Those creatures of darkness are gone. The sacred god pointed at the sky. Everyone looked over and was surprised to find that the creatures of darkness that had been fighting with them for some time had all disappeared. Nightmares are born from the heart. This is probably a feint from the abyssal death mist. Ziyi stepped forward and softly said. She raised her head and looked at the sky. I can feel that the power of darkness in this world is surging towards Little Star. That is the final battlefield. Is the battle over? The sacred god pondered, but shook her head fiercely. No, it's not over. It's just that we can't touch that battle. But, yes, perhaps it's not too late. We may still be able to help Lord God a little. "Old man, let's continue our journey to the land of the beginning," the sacred god roared. Old Wu nodded and ordered the fleet to adjust. Then, all of them rushed towards the same direction. They also had things that they could do. In the concept plane, Yun Nuashing opened his eyes. He also felt that the energy from all over the Suja continent was madly converging towards this place. That was probably all the energy it had left. Everything that it had done before seemed to be just to buy time, whether it was the tide of darkness released in the concept plane or the concept plane. What surprised him was that, after absorbing all the energy that had accumulated for dozens of eras, the big thing did not become extremely large. Instead, its physical body began to slowly shrink from the size of a sun to a black entity the size of a human. Yun Nuashing narrowed his eyes. A moment later, he saw the entity and felt that something was wrong. His eyes widened. What the hell? Chapter 1330. Standing in the conceptual layer of the rules was a huge figure with black smoke all over its body. It was enlarged according to the proportion of the human race. It might be 2 or 3 meters tall. Its body and eyes were flashing with scarlet lightning. It was completely different from the strong ancestors of Suya who emerged from the long river of time. It didn't emerge from the conceptual layer of the rules or the long river of time. It was directly manifested. It was engraved with the power of Suya's world core. It was a real person who once existed in Suya. 2/3 of its gigantic body was covered with traces of magma and blood-red lightning. The abnormally negative and dark energy made Yun Nuashing feel an aura comparable to that of the sins of the world. Even from such a distance, he could feel the energy that was enough to pollute and distort the entire void from its body, as if it had just crawled out of magma. Its entire body was smoking, and at some of its joints, black energy condensed into solid crystals, with a red dot showing endless madness. It was completely impossible to see the shape of a normal person, but it was the shape of a human. There was also the sound of a heartbeat, and the conceptual layer of the rules trembled because of the beating of its heart. Of course, this was not the main reason why Yun Nuashing cursed. He had seen all kinds of strange abyssal death mist spawns in the Dark Age. He cursed because he recognized who this person was, but it was definitely not him. He had walked into the divine destruction storm under his and Huey's gaze and was completely annihilated. Because his soul was destroyed by the people of the underworld, there was no possibility of reincarnation. What appeared here was only a mark of him that was engraved in the world of Suya. The abyssal death mist spawn occupied Suya's world core, so it was not strange that it could duplicate a supreme Suya. On its chest, the consciousness of the barrier, and Yun Nuashing looked at the black giant from the same perspective. Near the right side of its chest, there was a palm-sized azure ball, just like an ordinary energy ball, but it contained all the information of this world since its birth. It was indeed all the information when it was intact. Looking at its dim appearance now, it might have lost most of the information, but the remaining part might have information about the Supreme Suya, so the abyssal death mist spawn could duplicate it. Now, let's combine the items. 5 heavens of origin, abyssal death mist, and world core. A 5th firmament origin strengthened by the death shroud of the abyss and carrying the world core of Suya. When these 3 things were put together, its power would be close to the pinnacle of origin, or even a little stronger. If there were no accidents, it could even use all the energy of Suya. Oh, that last condition could be ignored. To be honest, it was not that he had never fought against thousands of worlds, but this was only one world, and a small planet in a world, so it was still child's play. He was only worried that the void would not be able to withstand the 2 of them. It would still take some effort for him to kill that black dust ball. Now that the realm of the gods had no backup and no way to open the door, he could only fight it head-on. Conservatively speaking, he would not be able to kill it in an instant. Roar! In the distance, the black dust ball that had almost fused with the concept layer of rules strode forward. The space around it wriggled wildly as black balls fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, they turned into abyssal death mist spawns that were dozens of meters tall and hundreds of meters tall. There were also spawns that were similar to humans. After those spawns were formed, they roared and followed the dust ball's footsteps. In just a moment, it was as if a wall was pushed from afar. It had arrived with thousands of soldiers, and the tide of darkness behind it showed an unprecedented level of discipline. It raised its right hand, and the abyssal death mist surged. A blade that was larger than a human appeared in its hand. It roared at the sea of rules, shaking the barrier that he had sealed this place. The Supreme of Suyao, who was now engraved by the abyssal death mist, once again appeared here, and stood in front of him with incomparable bravery. The number of abyssal death mist spawns is constantly being generated out of thin air at a rate of tens of thousands per second. The tide of destruction on the Suya continent is fading. The voice of the barrier's consciousness sounded directly in his mind. Yun Nuoxing heard it. That guy has fused with Suya's heart of the world, so he has nothing to fear. Before Suya's energy is exhausted, the spawns will probably not stop sending out troops. The problem is... He turned his head and glanced at the tide of darkness that had formed into a wall. The corner of his eyes twitched. There were too many of them. Although they were the cannon fodder of the cannon fodder to him, it was still strenuous to fight them. Monsters did not know fatigue, but he would get tired. Roar, roar, roar. The atmosphere was silent for more than 10 seconds. The Black Supreme One pointed the giant blade in his hand forward, and the abyssal death mist spawns that were like a tide let out a boiling and angry roar. They charged violently towards the most eye-catching person in this dark world. The momentum of the entire dark army was like thousands of gods charging head-on. The monstrous black fog lingered like a raging flame, and the entire concept layer of the rules shook because of it. The 5 divine swords beside Yun Nuoxing rotated slowly. With a thought, the magic formations that were hidden in the void appeared one after another. The scale was even larger and more terrifying than the one that had just appeared. The magic formations that were millions of miles wide were almost connected into a great wall of stars. Behind him, a huge and mysterious divine character was outlined. The remaining small magic formations that were thousands of feet long filled the character like energy patterns within the magic formations. Together, they formed a boundless array in this dark world. Several dark red and silver energy threads appeared behind him, connecting to the center of the compound magic formation. Suddenly, the entire huge magic formation flashed past one after another, as if it had come alive. There was no need for any confrontation or words. The opposition between order and chaos had existed since the creation of the Deyuan realm. This battle was just a small wave in that eternal confrontation. Countless magic formations surged with the light of energy. A moment later, a continuous torrent of energy swept past him like a river of energy, charging straight ahead. Meanwhile, in the camp of the abyssal death mist, a monstrous explosion of energy suddenly erupted. The energy storm that swept out tore apart the formation of the spawns. However, the spawns did not use any tactic. They only followed orders and charged fearlessly at Yun Nuoxing. They used their bodies to directly withstand the energy storm and the violent energy that swept over them, charging forward with their broken bodies and remaining energy. The large army that could not even be considered as shiny cannon fodder was not Yun Nuoxing's target at all. From the beginning to the end, his gaze had never moved away from the little giant. He did not care about the loss of those cannon fodder at all. No matter how many died, new soldiers would immediately appear beside him. They kept appearing at a speed that was like the expansion of hell, only to be torn apart at an even more brutal speed. Even if they appeared at a speed that was several times faster, they would still be suppressed by Yun Nuoxing's army that was close to limitless energy. Clack! Yun Nuoshing gently snapped his fingers. The numerous magic formations that stood beside him flickered. 12 energy pillars that were 10,000 kilometers wide instantly shot out, sweeping through the dark army as if they were plowing the ground. Only then did they charge towards the Most High One, with the rumbling of the Sea of Laws. Boom! The monstrous energy pillars arrived before him in an instant. The Most High One slowly took a step forward, and the 12 energy pillars exploded with a loud bang. Countless amounts of energy suddenly froze. It was not surprising that Yun Nuoshing was destroyed with a single strike. He casually waved his hand, and the energy that had just been released in the conceptual layer of laws suddenly rose from the ground. Including the remaining energy from the 12 energy pillars that had just been destroyed, all of it gathered towards the Most High One. It was as if thousands of stars were flickering and thousands of starlight were gathering. Roar! The Most High One let out a furious roar. The thousands of starlight that was rushing over did not even have the time to gather around him before they collapsed again, turning into a rain of energy that exploded. The energy that exploded blew away more than half of the Abyss Death Mist manifestation. However, the former was stunned very quickly, because there were still 12 palm-sized light pillars that landed on his body. 12 star carvings, divine lock. The 12 light pillars that had not been destroyed turned into 12 vast star domains in the instant the aurora flashed. An unparalleled pressure brought along the energy of the 12 star domains to collapse toward the Most High, as if it was the center of the starry sky. Following a loud rumble, the 12 star fields shrunk into a huge sphere. One could see a dazzling river of stars flashing inside and outside. Every speck of starlight was releasing an endless amount of suppressive energy towards the inside. However, Yun Nuoshing did not stop there. Right after he stopped his previous action, he made a new action. The huge formation formed by the characters of the gods behind him lit up with a bright dark red color in an instant. His hand seals changed, and several formations that were hundreds of meters in size appeared in front of him. Under his control, they quickly formed a huge hollow cylinder. At the top of the cylinder, there was a formation that shrunk from 10,000 to 1,000 miles in size. The last formation that was at the very front was only about 10 meters in size. Unlike the solidified formations behind him, the formations at the very front were constantly changing, regardless of whether it was the energy lines or the patterns drawn on the formation lines. Bang! The sealed area formed by the 12 star fields suddenly suffered a heavy blow. One end swelled up high like a blowfish with a spike. A faint black aura erupted from its tip. Immediately after, there was a second heavy blow and a third. A humanoid monster was trapped in that star field's starry sky cage. At this moment, it was roaring and fighting as it tried to charge out. Moreover, the Dark Army seemed to have sensed something. They actually gave up on charging towards Yun Nuoshing. One by one, they blocked the front of the starry sky cage. Layer after layer of black barriers bloomed one after another, and the visibility of that area instantly decreased. Even Yun Nuoshing could not completely see through it. It's that strange discipline again. Yun Nuoshing frowned slightly. His hands did not stop moving. The netherworld ruins sword that revolved around him shone with a purplish-black light. He looked at the area that was blocked by the hundreds of thousands of manifestations and narrowed his eyes. He could still sense that the starry sky cage had not been broken through yet. However, it seemed like he did not have much time to gather energy. Tisk, that's why I hate skills with such a long channeling time. Yun Nuoshing snorted softly. He raised his hand and slammed it down. The light of all the magic circles flickered at the same time. Finally, all of them gathered on that long pipe and the pyramid-like magic circle. The light of the netherworld ruins sword also flashed and disappeared. 12 star carvings. Heaven Splitter. The extreme flash that surpassed all life force senses and direct observation lasted only a short instant. The concept layer of laws was blown away in that instant, turning into a vast expanse of white. That boundless black sea collapsed without leaving a trace behind. A cone-shaped radiation tore through the region of nothingness from the front of the magic circle all the way to the dark army. Even the smallest region at the end of it was hundreds of millions of miles wide. The concept layer of laws and the sealing circle that Yun Nuashing had cast had a shocking gash. The energy shockwave came into contact with the primordial law power of the concept layer from a distance, causing a strange explosive reaction. That energy flash lasted for only an instant. It took 10 to 20 seconds from blinding to regaining vision. By the time everything reacted, everything before their eyes had already become that ghastly sight. The energy barrier that millions of abyssal death mist manifestations had built with their lives was extremely fragile. It was now slowly dissipating as it was penetrated, turning into a cloud of black dust and particles that gradually disappeared. From that huge hole that was gradually disappearing, one could see that half of the prison formed by the 12 planetary regions had been wiped away, and was slowly crumbling as well. Kaboom! In the main world, Ziyen and the others, who were frantically rushing, suddenly raised their heads when they heard an earth-shattering explosion. They saw that the sky had turned white, and a huge crack had opened up in the sky like an irregular awl, blocking the sunlight that was falling from the sky. It was as if a gate to the abyss had suddenly opened up in the sky, and there, they also saw Yun Nuashing standing there, and behind her was an endless magic circle. This scene could be seen by all of Sua. That was the battle in the concept layer of laws, ignoring the barriers of space and appearing all over the world. Most of the people who saw this scene were stunned. Old Wu and the others were also stunned for a moment, forgetting to organize themselves, and almost let the youngsters crash the ship into the floating island. Is that the battle in the depths of the world? The Xing deity looked up, trembling slightly. Is it over? Should not be. Feng Er thought for a moment and shook her head. If it was over, the stars would have blocked the rift. Now it seems that it is not over yet. Her last words had turned into a cry of surprise. Old Wu quickly commanded the ship to move, and then he took the time to look up and see the incomprehensible battle. Indeed, it was not over yet. After Yun Nuashing used Sky Splitter, he saw the prison was torn in half. The next second, he grabbed the Netherworld Ruin sword in his hand, and due to a moment of nervousness, he made a mistake and pinched the 5 swords together. The light in his hand lasted for less than half a second, and a long sword that looked like the background of a dark purple galaxy appeared. It was only as thick as an arm, and he did not think twice before swinging it behind him. Clang! The light of energy from the collision of the sword and the saber tore the concept layer of laws apart again. Yun Nuashing also took the time to see the prisoner who had run out. The Sky Splitter had caused great damage to it, and the left side of its body was almost completely gone. Even a third of its head was gone. But unfortunately, the heart of the world did not suffer much damage, and it would recover quickly. Roar, roar. Even though the Supreme's face was missing, it could still let out a frenzied roar. Black mist gushed out from the wound on its upper body like a fountain, and it recovered in just a few seconds. However, Yun Nuashing still noticed that the mist on its body had dissipated a lot because of this. Clang! Clang! After a few rapid exchanges of blows, the 2 similarly crazy energies exploded. In a split second, Yun Nuashing relied on the light element that broke through the limit to cut off the right hand of the Most High in an instant. Yun Nuashing then slashed his sword at the Most High's waist. Originally, he should have been able to cut the Most High in half, but instead, it was as if the divine sword had turned into a magic stick and sent the Most High flying. Without even thinking, the magic circle behind him roared angrily once again. Endless energy poured out in torrents in the direction he sensed. One of the slashes was dodged and did not hit the heart of the world. One of the slashes was disrupted and did not cut the heart of the world. Instead, it lost its target, the consciousness of the barrier said. Domain. Yun Nuoshing frowned. Yes, the Most High had opened up its domain. If not, it would not have been able to dodge the two slashes. The divine domain originally belonged to the gods. Perhaps it would be better to call it the abyss domain now. He did not open up this layer of divine domain in the concept layer of laws, because it would easily disrupt Sua's laws. That was the first reason. The second reason was that the divine domain was not as useful as expected when dealing with the abyssal death mist. This was the experience of the Dark Age. But he did not expect to encounter an abyssal death mist derivative that could open up a divine domain. Come. Yun Nuoshing waved at the void, and the magic circle with the words of the gods slowly floated over and lay across him. In the process, he did not relax his suppression of firepower. His opponent was the Most High who had suddenly opened up its domain. This time, he was caught in the divine domain of someone else, so he had to be more focused. Swoosh! A shadow flew in front of him, but Yun Nuoshing turned his head abruptly to look elsewhere. When the shadow was about 10 feet away from him, it suddenly became blurry. The magic circle that was pouring out energy indiscriminately poured out energy in all directions. It was not that they were attacking randomly, but when they were attacking, the target suddenly disappeared. Another shadow flashed by beside him. Yun Nuoshing did not swing his sword and was still on guard. He stood in the middle of the field and kept changing directions. His spiritual power and soul power were opened to the maximum extent to capture the erratic shadow. It flashed past 10 feet away from him dozens of times, and even brought the energy blasted by the magic circle to his side. But it still did not attack and flashed in the entire space. Roar, roar! Roars came from all directions, startling Yun Nuoshing. There was a sudden flash of light in front of his eyes, and there was a change in his domain. Suddenly, a gigantic abyss incarnation rose from the ground. It was so huge that one could pluck the stars with one hand. There were also endless demonic shadows erupting around it like a volcano. After that gigantic figure appeared, its gigantic palm pressed down directly, bringing the endless demonic shadows with it as it descended. The palm that was even bigger than the stars came in front of him. Yun Nuoshing's eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to defend, he suddenly let go of his huge sword. A mysterious word appeared in his palm, and he turned around and slapped it out. The space suddenly flickered, and the solid figure of the Most High appeared in front of him. He extended his 5 fingers that were as sharp as daggers at Yun Nuoshing. They brushed past Yun Nuoshing's shoulder, and then he was sent flying hundreds of miles away by the palm with the words of the gods. The divine swords separated in an instant and surrounded him from 5 corners. Boom! Boundless divine light blossomed behind him. It was the giant palm that had collided head-on with the formation. The energy shockwaves from the explosion had killed all of the small demonic shadows. The giant palm was also gradually crumbling under the impact of the excessive energy. Yun Nuoshing put his hands together. The divine swords worked together, and the energy barrier formed by the words of the gods suppressed the Most High in the center. The energy formed by the endless sword energy and the power of destruction slashed his body, causing him to roar in pain. Under the situation of being suppressed, he was still able to struggle and reach out his hand. He forcibly reached out his hand through the barrier formed by the divine swords and the dark red energy. When his hand passed through the barrier, it was sliced into a hideous skeleton. It was as if he wanted to grab Yun Nuoshing from hundreds of miles away. 10,000 mammoths guide the void, chaos, crack. The crisp sound of something shattering made Yun Nuoshing raise his head in shock. A huge crack appeared in the energy barrier formed by the 5 divine sword. The figure in the prison suddenly disappeared. Yun Nuoshing's eyes narrowed. He dispersed all the energy in his hands, and a divine rune appeared between his eyebrows. Then, he also struck out with his palm. Bang! With a loud bang, the empty space in front of him exploded. However, he did not send the Most High flying. Instead, he was pinned against the formation behind him. Oh ho! Yun Nuoshing laughed bitterly in his heart. This was going to be fun. Chapter 1331. You dare to touch me? Yun Nuoshing had a half-smile on his face. He did not feel uncomfortable at all because of the big black hand that was strangling his neck. His body emitted a silver-black light, and the sins of the world mixed with the dark red energy quickly ran through his body. In an instant, it emerged from the depths of his body and wrapped around the black hand. The manifestation that did not have much intelligence would naturally not be devoured by the darkness of the sins of the world. He just wanted it to be assimilated by the sins of the world. Roar! He soon realized that his hand was covered by a thin layer of unknown silver-black substance. A low roar of doubt came from his throat, and his scarlet eyes flashed wildly. Yun Nuoshing kept staring at his eyes. He suddenly had an ominous premonition. He gritted his teeth, and a large amount of sins of the world gushed out from his body. Like a lump of mud, the sins of the world accurately covered more than half of the Most High's black body. He was shocked. You're not dodging. Boom! The violent explosion of energy coming from behind made Yun Nuoshing a little irritated. He snorted coldly. So noisy. Get out of my way. The magic circle that was engraved with the characters of the kamikaze era bloomed with the colors of a galaxy. Countless fine energy burst out from the side facing the big guy, tearing the huge hand into pieces. The dense energy beams merged into a huge energy torrent when they were halfway out. In an instant, the endless demonic shadows and the big guy were blasted into powder. The energy that had not been exhausted suddenly split into thousands of energy beams. They forcefully drew a curve in space like a meteor, and then rushed toward Yun Nuoshing and the Most High in front of him. Tens of thousands of energy lights accurately enveloped the two people. The violent energy explosion illuminated the concept layer. Yun Nuoshing suddenly burst out with a huge amount of energy in the energy flames that drowned out his line of sight. His palm slashed down like a sharp blade, cutting off the black arm that was strangling his neck. Even the energy flames were split in half by his one hand. After breaking free from the grip of the Most High, Yun Nuoshing took the magic circle and retreated a distance. Looking at the area that was covered by the energy flames and was still erupting in 4 or 5 sections, he could not help but frown. That guy had finally caught him. Although he could not kill him in one blow, he should at least hit him twice to vent his anger or something. But why was he stunned like a fool? Oh, he forgot. Those guys were all fools to begin with. It was just that he did not expect this guy to be so stupid that even his instincts were suppressed. Stretching out his right hand, a dark red energy appeared. All the energy in his body and the void gathered in his palm. After a while, the condensed energy ball stirred up a strong energy wind in this dark space. He did not intend to think too deeply about what had just happened. In a situation like this, if he did not push the Most High into the void and pull out its tendons and skin it, it would push him into the concept layer and give him a good beating. The moment the energy flames dissipated, Yun Nuoshing was about to slap the energy in his hand on the Most High's face. But he was slightly stunned. The Most High was still in the same pose as before. His severed right hand had already recovered. At this moment, the Most High was still pressing him against the wall. It was as if time had stopped at that moment. Yun Nuoshing could not help but be stunned. In this 2 or 3 seconds of being stunned, the Most High actually spoke slowly. You are also chaos. You are the same as us. Xian and the others who were watching the live broadcast in the Suja continent, as well as the Golden Queen and the others who were watching the live broadcast in the Celestial Realm, were all stunned. Yun Nuoshing frowned. The same as us referred to the energy attribute? Was it referring to the sins of the world or the chaos? No, the power of divine destruction in him? I was careless. Yun Nuoshing said to himself with a faint smile. The sins of the world carry all the darkness and negativity in this world. The abyssal death mist and the chaos element are very similar. They are all distorted products born from the errors in the rules of this world. That's right. If you really want to count, I am also not in the Order faction. As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Nuoshing's figure flashed. The Most High suddenly came back to his senses. He raised his head and roared angrily. The space in front of him suddenly flashed. A dark red energy ball suddenly appeared from the space. Yun Nuoshing pushed the Most High into the energy ball. Then, he slammed the Most High deep into the concept layer of the rules. All things in the void, chaos, falling stars. Yun Nuoshing's hand seal changed abruptly. The dark red energy ball that carried a huge energy flame into the concept layer of the rules expanded wildly in a few breaths. A powerful suction force burst out from the energy ball, and the concept layer of the rules, separated by the barrier, the sea of time, the void, and the space of the present world, all the energy that could be touched was crazily sucked into it. From a glance, it was as if the space had suddenly caved in and turned into a hole. All the energy was pouring into the hole like a waterfall. After absorbing the energy ball kept expanding and finally became 1,000,000 miles wide. It turned into a colorful color. The concept layer of the rules around it was once again distorted into a white color. The resulting spatial distortion waves almost shook the space into the void. A few seconds later, a huge dark red starlight suddenly flashed out of nowhere and penetrated the expanding energy ball from top to bottom. The colorful energy ball that condensed the infinite energy of the world produced a turbulent energy reaction inside. Whether it was the energy that Yun Nuoshing recognized or not, all the energy in the energy ball was now distorted by that energy. All the energy in the energy ball was crazily squeezing and collapsing toward the inside. He could even hear the sound of the space roaring and wailing. Go to hell. Wait. Why didn't anyone remind me that this is inside the concept layer of the rules? Yun Nuoshing had a crazy look on his face. Half a second later, he suddenly realized the seriousness of the problem and was awakened by cold sweat on his face. The collapsed space had set off an irresistible storm of matter and energy. The originally round energy ball was now slightly deformed. Seeing this scene, he knew that there was no way to stop this attack. I've gone too far. I've gone too far. In these 3 to 4 seconds, Yun Nuoshing, who was so anxious that he felt like he was trying to stop the end of the world, was sweating profusely. He looked at the energy ball that had already become somewhat fragmented and screamed again. It was suppressing all its destructive energy under his extreme control, but this suppression could not last for long. No one could stop a star that was in the midst of destruction. Void seal. Hundreds of millions of formations connected to form a huge spherical energy barrier. Layers upon layers of energy barriers were released inside and outside the formations, completely sealing off the space. The moment he completed the sealing, the spherical crystal layer had just finished spreading, and an unprecedented flash of light suddenly erupted in that space. It was the condensation of most of the energy of a peak heavenly god, as well as an energy nova caused by the boundless energy of the void of this world, and it had exploded while trapped in a limited space. The energy explosion and the sealed energy came from the same source, but no matter how much they came from the same source, it was impossible to completely seal off the energy explosion of a star. After the crystal layer was hit by the energy impact, it began to rapidly spread outward. Before the energy crystal layer could spread to the newly expanded area, energy pillars that exceeded the speed limit erupted from those areas and tore through the concept layer of laws. The cracks that led to the void were blocked by Yun Nuoshing as soon as they appeared. At this time, he looked at the dazzling light erupting from the area where the energy shone. He was both annoyed and annoyed. This time, he was too excited and forgot that the battlefield they were fighting on was actually in the concept layer of laws. If that energy really erupted without any scruples, such a continent would really be hopeless. He didn't know how long the energy explosion raged for, but it lasted long enough to blind everyone who saw it. Yun Nuoshing felt that a white light spot appeared in his eyes after looking at it for a long time. When he was busy repairing the cracks in the void, he secretly wiped his eyes. Fortunately, the energy explosion and the sealed energy came from the same source, so it was not so difficult to seal it. Moreover, Yun Nuoshing poured a considerable part of the energy into the void of nothingness and finally managed to guard the energy explosion. At this moment, the sealed energy circle of the void seal that was about to explode was gradually shrinking as the energy inside subsided. Main body, when we were in close contact earlier, I felt a faint but clear sentience coming from the body of the manifestation. There were also some emotions in it. The voice of the barrier's consciousness suddenly sounded at this moment. After all, it is the pinnacle of origin. You see, the big guy in the altar world I fought last time also had sentience, but this may also be a special model. After all, it has evolved for dozens of eras and actually has the ability to command other manifestations of the abyssal death mist. Yun Nuoshing also whispered in a low voice. The situation of the void seal is still fine. We must not let it leak out. It would be bad if the void mist changes abnormally. The barrier's consciousness shook its head. The individual has independent sentience. It seems to be affected by some kind of mind. Some kind of mind? Yun Nuoshing was really stunned this time. Just now, he was in high spirits and did not notice those things for a while. What kind of mind? Wait, I have a bad guess. That Most High used the appearance of the Most High Sua. Now that some kind of mind was mentioned, and the world core was still hanging on it, Yun Nuoshing's face twitched. It can't be that unlucky, right? Could that thing be affected by the Most High's sentience? That Most High Sua had died in the hands of the underworld. He was a fifth celestial of origin and had died in battle for his own world. In less than a day after his resurrection, he was still fighting outside, tearing apart the abyssal death mist, and in the end, crashing into the world of origins. Yun Nuoshing would not believe that such a person did not have any regrets and sentiments left behind when he died. Now, he was only worried that that thing really had a sliver of sentience left behind, and then through the world core, he was coincidentally caught by the Most High. That would be really fun. This could also explain why that thing would appear in the appearance of the Most High. Roar. Roar. In the sealed area, the remaining energy had yet to completely dissipate. While Yun Nuo planet was still in deep thought, they heard a crazy roar that contained the power of the natural order coming from the crystallized sealed area. It was no longer as rational and intelligent as before. It was just a crazy monster. However, if one listened carefully, they could indeed hear something from the roar that contained the power of the natural order. The emotions of sadness and pain came from the Supreme who had fallen dozens of eras ago. It really is. Yun Nuoshing murmured and looked at the sealed area. The Most High rushed out of the remaining energy flames with his broken body and smashed his fist into the energy crystal, causing the entire sealed area to flicker. The sentience of the Empyrean God of origin. If it was the original version, it would be easy to deal with. The original abyssal death mist would also be easy to deal with. However, these two together are abnormal. The former, with the distortion of the abyssal death mist, has become a monster through and through. It's really difficult to get rid of it. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. What a troublesome theorem. Yun Nuoshing clenched her teeth and smacked her lips. At this time, the consciousness of the barrier appeared again. The energy of the world of Sua has been reduced to less than 1/10 after the battle just now. I'm afraid that most of the energy has been used by her. If the energy of the world of Sua is depleted, that world will most likely collapse. Even so, Yun Nuoshing looked at the Most High, who was like a mad dog. Seeing that it had lost its mind and did not even heal its wounds, she could not help but frown. I can't think of any other way to purify it. Sealing it is not a good idea either. The abyssal death mist is least afraid of seals and prisons. After a long time, when all of us who left the seal are dead, it will still be alive. Not only that, but it will also kill the warden, break out of prison, and escape. It will definitely be a level stronger than when it was first sealed. The consciousness of the barrier was silent. There was indeed no good way to deal with it. It was unrealistic to leave it here. If they continued to fight, the world core would definitely affect the SUA continent. Destroying it by force was actually not a problem. After all, there was still a world core in the core of the planet. However, even the new energy star just now only took away half of the life of the Most High, and the world core was still well protected. For a moment they did not know what to do. Lord Kami, I think we should be able to lend you a hand. When Yun Nuashing was hesitating and began to accumulate power, a voice came from Xian's soul seed. It was the voice of the sacred god. Yun Nuashing was stunned for a moment. What way? The scepter that you have pieced together has a reaction in the starting ground. We just heard that the monster was affected by the undying obsession of the Most High in SUA. If so, with this scepter, maybe, the starting ground? While Yun Nuashing was suppressing and accumulating power, he took the time to glance at the space in the main world. Then, he was stunned and his eyes widened. Ziyen and the others were standing in a huge pit. There was nothing within 100 miles of it. The dark ground was like a ghost, but in the center of the dark pit, there was a trace of gold-like energy remaining in the space. He immediately recognized that place as the Land of Hope. There were still traces of the piece he had dug out, but he didn't expect that after so many years, that place still hadn't changed. Well, the abyss death fog in this world hadn't really been cleaned up, so it was reasonable that the Land of Hope hadn't been purified. Yun Nuashing looked at both sides hesitantly. After a moment, he waved his hand and dispersed the dark red energy condensed in his hand. Then, he waved his hand and the consciousness of the barrier appeared. He patted it. I'll be back soon. Help me take a look. Logically speaking, it should not be broken through in a day, but who knows if this guy who messes around with the world core will cause any big news. As soon as the consciousness of the barrier nodded, Yun Nuashing suddenly disappeared and headed toward the space in the real world. As soon as Xian felt his soul calm down, he saw a dark red energy suddenly appear in the space. He hurriedly waved his hand and had everyone retreat a little. Then, Yun Nuashing, who had just experienced a battle and was in a slightly sorry state, appeared from the dark red energy. This is the Land of Hope. It was created by the Supreme SUA back then to fight against the forces of the Abyss Death Fog. I didn't expect it to still be here after dozens of eras. Yun Nuashing said this as soon as he appeared. He looked around and found that other than the girls and the Xing deity of the battlefield, there were a few other unfamiliar faces here. Heavenly deity. The Xing deity cupped her hands. She knew that time was of the essence, so she did not say anything and directly handed the scepter to Yun Nuashing. Yun Nuashing took the scepter, but before he could examine it carefully, he felt a weak energy fluctuation. He thought for a moment, then grabbed the scepter and flew toward the center of the Land of Hope. The others hurriedly followed behind him. There's only a little bit of energy left in the Land of Hope. This is the place where the Supreme was buried back then. Yun Nuashing grabbed the scepter and put it down on the ground. He took 2 steps back and patiently waited for a while. At the same time, he began to gather energy on his body. After a few minutes of waiting, it was as if they had experienced the vicissitudes of life and the process of turning everything into dust. Everyone was sweating. Yun Nuashing stared at the silent scepter until a certain moment, suddenly, a golden light appeared from the space and poured into the scepter. Roar, in the concept layer of the rules, the madly roaring figure was suddenly stunned, as if it was frozen in place. In its scarlet eyes, the madness gradually faded. The breath of the abyssal death mist was still there, but it slowly faded, as if a volatile breath was peeled off from its body. Its figure was also constantly blurring and becoming transparent. It's dissipating? No, the obsession of the Empyrean god of origin won't disappear so easily. Through the eyes of the barrier's consciousness, Yun Nuoshing saw the scene in the prison. He narrowed his eyes slightly, shook his head, and muttered to himself. Maybe it touched something that caused such a change. There should be a more powerful appearance later. Not long after he sat down, the blurry figure that was almost annihilated suddenly became solid. A slender and majestic figure emerged from the prison. There was no longer any trace of the abyss death mist on his body. That pair of clear eyes opened again after dozens of eras. The roaring aura of the Empyrean god of origin made the prison glow faintly. The hostility contained in the prison dissipated completely. Yun Nuoshing confirmed that there was indeed no abyss death fog left. Only then did he feel relieved and opened the prison. He inadvertently looked up at the sky and saw a huge all-shaped scar. He froze for a moment, then lowered his head with a smile that was caused by him. As expected, it's the incarnation of an obsession. It should have been left in the Suya continent to protect this world. I never thought that it would be corroded by the abyss death fog and become like this. Yun Nuoshing let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that there was no need to fight. He was really afraid that he would accidentally destroy this world if he used too much strength. The sudden attack of the underworld destroyed everything I had. There was no more hope. I thought that I would die in the final battle, but the regret in my heart exceeded my own imagination, leaving behind an obsession. A faint sigh came from beside him, and the sigh made the entire sky tremble. I never thought that the obsession would not be able to protect the Suya continent. Instead, it would become their accomplice many years later. In this life there are enough failures. In the end, I couldn't protect anything. Yun Nuoshing stretched and looked at the illusory figure that suddenly appeared beside him. He shrugged and looked at the supreme figure of the Suya continent. He smiled slightly and said, "Long time no see, celestial god of the realm of gods. After almost 90 eras, I still feel creeped out." Yun Nuoshing stuck out his tongue. Chapter 1332. More than 80 eras had passed. The two of them had only met once and had never truly spoken to each other. Yet, when they met again in the 139th era, nothing seemed to have changed. At the same time, it also seemed to be completely different from that day. Both of them were loners whose time had frozen in that era. Feng Ling was still the same Feng Ling, but he was no longer the lazy young man from the beginning. The Most High was not the real Most High. It was just an undying obsession that he had left behind in the Suya continent. He had also been imprisoned by the death fog of the abyss for countless years. Now that he had awakened, he could only sigh at how fate made fools of him. He no longer recognized anyone here. The Most High turned to look at Yun Nuoshing, who was looking at the sky in a daze. The presence of time and era did not leave any trace on him, and he looked the same as when he first met him. The Most High could not help but laugh. "I have to thank you again this time, heavenly God of the divine realm. Suja has been reborn several times because of you. Well, I'm tired of beating you up, so I won't push it around with you. I'll just take your thanks first." Yun Nuoshing let out a long yawn. "After that, let's talk about something more practical. What do you plan to do with the Suja continent? It's now at the southernmost tip of the divine realm, where not many have reached, hanging over the horizon." "Don't look at me like that, it floated here from the void." "Ahem. So, do you plan to let it hang over there, or do you want me to push it back and continue to wander the void?" Yun Nuoshing looked at the Most High's pensive look and said seriously, "Now that the divine realm is facing a great calamity, I can't guarantee that it won't be harmed if it hangs there." The divine realm is facing a great calamity? After almost 90 eras, even the greatest major world of the 8 elements realm has declined? The Most High perked up his ears, a little interested. The entire void has declined, but the realm of the gods is still the #1 major world in the 8 elemental realms. However, the gap between it and the other worlds has shrunk a lot. Oh, that's not the main point. The main point is that calamity. Well, after all, they've been ravaging Sua for countless years. Now, after a few dozen epochs, they're stirring up trouble in the realm of the gods again. Yun Nuashing shrugged helplessly when she saw the Most High's eyes widening. I'm not trying to scare you, Void Mist. Oh, that's the name given to it by the first person who discovered the abyssal death mist in this era. It's different from what we know in the Dark Age. All you need to know is that it has already destroyed 10,000 worlds, and there's also a brick with extremely dense void mist that's heading towards the divine realm. I've taken a look at the brick's barrier, and it's very difficult to break through it. Furthermore, there aren't many original life forms in this era. Since the structure of the void has declined, the underworld must be experiencing the same thing. I'm not sure how much it has declined. With the realm of the god's strength, it shouldn't be a problem to pull out 100 Empyrean gods of origin, right? Yun Nuashing looked at him and sighed faintly. Including me, there's only 3. 2 are local, 1 is foreign, and the other is half dead. With the current laws of the realm of the gods, there are less than 20 Empyrean gods who can fight. The Most High. That's a little bad. No, it's very bad. But that's your problem. This lingering will of mine won't last long. Sua will stay in the realm of the god. Just let it roam around the realm of the god. Because of me, it has encountered so many things, and it hasn't been able to settle down. I'm sorry. Then I'll take my leave first. The utmost being waved his hand as his figure gradually dimmed. Yun Nuashing also waved his hand at him. Just as he was about to send him off, he suddenly recalled something and hurriedly pulled that fellow who was about to dissipate. Hey, wait a moment. I still have something to ask you. Back then, when you left that scepter behind, you asked that fellow to tell us something, but that fellow forgot it himself. What were you going to say back then? Scepter? The Most High was stunned for a moment, and his figure that was about to disappear stabilized again. He seriously thought about it for a moment, and a look of realization appeared on his face. That. Actually, I can't say. To be specific, it's something I saw when I fought my way into the underworld. Back then, in the underworld that dominated the war, I spied on some kind of dark and profound energy aura in their territory. It was even more twisted and terrifying than the death mist in the abyss. Perhaps it was even more intense than the sin of the world on your body. It even felt a little conflicting with the aura of the underworld. It was obviously not an energy that originally belonged to them. I don't know what that aura was, and the rest is just my guess. Personally, I think that those guys in the underworld might have tinkered with some kind of power and obtained that kind of energy from somewhere. That's why they had the guts to flatten the entire 8 elements realm. That's all I know. Yun Nuashing was silent. She just sighed and shook her head. She didn't say anything, and she didn't make any guesses. At the moment, she didn't want to think about these questions. It was too heavy and too tiring. I'm leaving. After this farewell, I'm afraid it will really be the last time. If you have time, please take care of Sua for me. The Most High walked forward with his hands behind his back and chuckled. That stalwart figure slowly dimmed, like a firefly that was slowly extinguished in the summer night. This world, I always feel that something is missing. It's not exciting enough, and it's not gorgeous enough. Fortunately, there's still you watching over it. There will always be hope for everything. His figure blurred and dimmed, turning into a glimmer of light and dissipating. At this moment, all the lives of Sua were stunned. Their bodies stiffened, and they felt a sense of emptiness in their souls, as if something very important was slowly collapsing. That sudden feeling even made them forget everything that they had been thinking about in the past few minutes. Some people even cried silently, feeling a little sad. Farewell. Yun Nuashing let out a long sigh and waved at the glimmer of light. He had already left the world during the Age of Darkness. Now that he had awakened, he had truly disappeared. There was no longer any trace of him in this world. He once again let out a long sigh and turned around. He saw that the Xing deity and the others were stunned. Xian and the others weren't Sua's people, so they didn't feel the feeling of losing something important. Instead, they were familiar with the scene of him saying goodbye to his old friend. Xian saw that he was a little emotional, so she walked up and grabbed his hand. She didn't say anything and just quietly looked at him. It wasn't good to talk at this time. The Xing deity of battlefield was the first to react. He quickly coughed and patted the man next to him. Then, he walked up and nodded to Yun Nuashing. His tone was still respectful. So, everything is over. If you're talking about the endless calamities that have followed us across eras, that's right, it's over. From now on, Sua doesn't have to engage in any meaningless battles. The destructive waves on the surface will gradually recede. Yun Nuashing shrugged. Although what's left is just a broken shell, at least it's still alive, isn't it? The destructive waves didn't destroy the life on the surface. Those distortions will recover one day. Next, it's time for you to start a new life. There's no abyssal death mist, so you don't have to recklessly fight and kill. The seal of the barrier will be lifted after a full day of inspection, and you will once again see the stars that you haven't seen for countless years. There's a lot of trouble to face again. Yun Nuashing laughed silently. There's also a lot of trouble in the realm of the gods. However, I can assure you that even if the flames of war there reach the heavens, it won't affect you here. After all, it was that guy's last request. It was only then that the others reacted. The man who had just been slapped by the Xing deity scratched his head and sighed. It's finally over. After so many years of war, I really want to die together with this world. Speaking of which, we haven't seen each other for a long time. But I don't seem to have much lifespan left. What? Old man, you want to retire? The Xing deity smiled at the middle-aged man. They were all the heirs of the Sua continent. Most of them didn't have a long lifespan. Although the middle-aged man looked like he was only 30 years old, he was already past his prime. However, because he still had a mission and a heavy burden on his shoulders, he didn't show it. Now that he felt that everything was finally over, he was already bent over. Ahem. If you want to reunite, then go ahead. However, there are still a lot of troubles in this world, and you'll have to deal with them yourselves. Yun Nuashing coughed softly to remind them. Although the abyssal death mist had completely disappeared this time, there were still a lot of things that happened because of it. Large and small wars had been fought for generations, and the grudges between them couldn't be completely wiped out in a short time. That won't do. The middle-aged man laughed heartily. Right now, the most important thing is to get rid of the things in this old man's head. In the future, there will be no need for the heirs to exist, but the things in our heads that have been preserved from generation to generation still have value. After we're done with this, the Xing deity asked, and then? I'll retire and return to my hometown. I'll find a place far away from the mortal world, plant some crops, graze some cows, dig a 3-foot lake, and raise some fish. The mountains on my island have been blasted bare by the previous battles. After that, I plan to plant some trees and raise some flowers. Everyone was speechless. It really was a plan to retire and return to one's hometown. There were even stages to it. Yun Nuashing couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. In a sense, you heirs are the ones who are forcefully hanging the lives of this world. In the end, you only plan to be idle. The middle-aged man nodded with a smile. The world, saving the world, great heroes, heirs, all of these are much more important than just talking about them. When I was young, I was just a kid in a small village who didn't know anything. After dealing with the mess left behind here, I'll return to that deserted village and quietly live out the rest of my life. I'll just leave the other important matters aside." Yun Nuoxing looked at the middle-aged man whose soul had already aged. After a moment, she raised her head. It was indeed too heavy for a god with a lifespan of 100 years to bear those things. The continuous and eternal responsibility of this world had already exhausted them. They were not gods who grew step by step with the footprints of time, but extreme products that were forcefully catalyzed and born in this cruel world. They had to control this world and control and restrain themselves. In the end, they might have lived a muddle-headed life for more than 100 years, without a single day for themselves. Fortunately, although the old man had already thought of a retirement plan, the sense of responsibility of being an inheritor for hundreds of years didn't allow him to immediately carry out this plan. They would still be in this position for a while, until the world of Sua returned to normal, and all the products of the war were turned into ashes along with this battle. Only then would they truly stop. It's a miracle created by man. Yun Nuoxing sighed in her heart. No matter what the outcome was, Sua had already been reborn and was no longer affected by the abyssal death mist. Not only the old man, but the other heirs could also liberate themselves appropriately. For them, returning to their original state might be a good thing. Yun Nuoxing shrugged, indicating that she was too lazy to care. "Well, anyway, it's your freedom to do whatever you want. The realm of the gods has a lot of messes to deal with, and we don't have time to." "Oh right." Yun Nuoxing searched her body for a long time and finally took out a teleportation token from her pendant. She shook her hand and threw it to the Xing deity. "This is the teleportation gate to the realm of the gods. When everything is settled and you are interested in that world, you can find a place to fix the teleportation gate and go through it. Someone will be in charge of receiving you. As long as you don't cause trouble, there will be no problem." The Xing deity took the colorful token with a slightly strange expression. "Heavenly deity, according to what you said just now, the Sua continent is hanging next to the realm of the gods. Can't we just leave the sky and fly to the realm of the gods?" Yun Nuoxing was silent for a moment, then said faintly, "You can, but the place you came out from isn't very good, everyone." "Ah. Ahem, in short, it's because of certain reasons. During this period of time, if you want to go to the realm of the gods and settle the matter of Sua, use the teleportation gate first. When I have time, I will move your world to another location, and you can slowly study whether or not to go to the sky." The Xing deity and the others were confused, but they all nodded to show that they understood. "Then we will be leaving too." Yun Nuoxing waved her hand and smiled at Xian and the group of girls beside her. "Let's go back. Farewell, heavenly deity." The Xing deity and the others respectfully clasped their hands and bowed. The moment they lowered their heads and looked up, the space in front of them was only left with a wave of light particles that spiraled and disappeared. The few of them looked at each other, then looked at the sun in the sky and couldn't help but smile. For the first time, they felt that the world was still so beautiful. The matter of Sua had caused quite a stir. In that world, the void was more or less affected. After all, two peak heavenly deities of origin were fighting in the concept layer of laws, and the commotion caused was at the level of world destruction. Because the two worlds were close to each other, there were more or less signs of disturbance in the realm of the gods. According to Palace Master Jean and the others, the last sun of the fourth round of the meteor shower was destroyed by an extremely powerful energy that came out of nowhere. At that time, the group of people controlling the combined barrier was shocked, because that energy had almost destroyed their barrier. "Are you kidding? I remember that I threw all the excess energy into the void. How could it have reached the realm of the gods?" Not long after returning to the Nine Deities Temple, Yun Nuoxing saw Princess Jean and the others come over. When they told him about the matter, he immediately refuted. However, He didn't refute for long because he saw Palace Master Jean pass him a crystal ball. The crystal ball reflected the scene of a certain place in the prime origin region. There was a destructive fan-shaped crack that was more than 10 million kilometers wide, and its length, well, one couldn't see the end of it. Currently, there was no one in the realm of the gods who had such great destructive power, and no one would be so free as to run over to that scorched land and attack it. Yun Nuoshing sweated profusely. I think I can explain this. Listen to me. Mei Mao turned around and said, Xingxing was fighting like crazy at that time. You don't have to explain it. Yun Nuoshing's nose twitched. He squatted down and drew circles on the ground with an aggrieved look on his face. After that, he used the observer's eye to take a look at the scene and found that there were still remnants of his energy. There was nothing else to explain. In the blink of an eye, 4 or 5 days had passed since they returned to the realm of the god. After watching the fireworks and solving the problem left behind by Suya, Yun Nuoshing had been lazing around in the temple. He sat there without moving. If no one came to torment him, he might be able to sit there until the world fragment came crashing down. As for the time when he was being tormented, it was mostly the group of girls who came to torment him. Although he was grumbling, he was in a much better mood. During this period of time, he also began to torment everyone's cultivation. The most chaotic situation was about to arrive. There would be a day when his protection would fail. He was worried that these girls couldn't handle their own affairs well when he was not around. After thinking for a while, Yun Nuoshing took out the divine weapon world. He found a room and stayed there for 2 hours. After that, he threw it to Xian and said in front of everyone, "That divine weapon is no longer useful to me. I have improved it a little and changed it a little. Now it is also a divine weapon at the peak of the origin level. If you are in the most dangerous situation, you can hide in it. Even the primeval god of the beginning can't find you." The hall was quiet. There were dozens of people, but no one opened their mouth to speak. They just let cold sweat flow down their faces. "What if he chases after us and attacks us?" Nightmare said in a daze. He felt that he might suffocate to death if he didn't say something. "It's fine. The speed of the void travel is calculated according to my speed. It will only take me a minute to run from the left edge of the chaotic void to the right edge. If it really doesn't work, I can cross the boundary in a second." He's asking for death. Yun Nuoshing waved his hand to show that he didn't care at all. Everyone looked at the galaxy in Xian's hand strangely. That's right, it looked like a galaxy. There should be a transparent energy membrane around it. They could see that the galaxy inside was slowly rotating. No aura spread out. Who would have thought that this seemingly decorative thing was actually a powerful divine weapon? Xian didn't care about the thing in his hand. He just stared at Yun Nuoshing with his deep purple eyes. There was a hint of sadness in his eyes, but it disappeared before he saw it. Wasn't the countdown for the arrival of the world fragment a countdown for him as well? Some people also thought of this problem. The Golden Queen slammed her hand on the table and suddenly stood up. "Little star, can you move the god's world now?" The silent crowd immediately came back to their senses. They had heard that 10 or so powerful gods were needed to move the god's world. Now that he had recovered to the peak of reciprocity, did that mean that he could move the god's world as he pleased? "Oh, if you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have said it." Yun Nuoshing rubbed a strand of his bangs as he leaned against the sofa lazily. "We can't move them away. The world barrier and the void have all been sealed. I can bring them away, but the god realm can't." "How? You can't take the god's world away with your strength at reciprocity?" Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. "There's nothing strange about it." Yun Nuoshing sighed and struggled to sit up from the sofa. After some effort, he found that lying down was more comfortable, so he simply stopped moving. After all, there are primeval gods in the underworld. I don't believe that the final battle at the end of the Dark Age could kill all of them. If that was really the case, history would have recorded the events of the Dark Age. It wouldn't be like today. If I didn't say anything, almost no one would know what happened during the Dark Age. The Order faction lost miserably in the end. They gathered the energy of more than 10,000 worlds in the timeline. The battle covered the entire Deyuan realm. They used up everything, but they still lost miserably in the end. Yun Nuoxing finally sat up this time. According to my speculation, the person who launched that attack was at least a mid-level primeval god, or a high-level primeval god, or even higher. Even if I know this, I still have to fight for the god's world in that timeline. After all, Yun Nuoxing was silent for a moment. After a while, he smiled sweetly. After all, I am the observer who is loved by all. That was Feng Ling's reason. It was his reason, but it was not the reason of this era. He knew very well that these differences would not cause psychological conflict. And I also want to try. What if I can really reverse that ending? What if I can really win? Can I end that dream with no regrets? Can I end everything in the Dark Age? What am I thinking? Yun Nuoxing covered his face and forced a smile. The hall was silent for a few minutes. It was another topic that could not be continued. After a while, Yun Nuoxing planned to go out and exercise. As soon as he stood up, a feeling surged in his heart. It was the same feeling he had when he came back. He suddenly sighed and looked at Xian and the others. Girls, it's about time for me to go out. Everyone was stunned. After a while, they realized what he was talking about. Their expressions became even more gloomy. When I'm not here, I'll leave the god's world to you. Chapter 1333. Stars twinkled in the night sky. The two moons had not appeared in the sky for a long time. The lavender moonlight shone on the realm of the gods. It was cool and a little charming. However, the scenery in the distance was only a piece of scorched earth. Black lava flowed endlessly on the ground, and no one knew where it would stop flowing. There were tens of millions of scents left on the scorched earth. The air was so hot that not even a trace of water elemental energy was left. Black smoke was still floating in the sky. It was a scene that looked like the end of the world. There was only one moon in the realm of the gods in the Dark Age. It was the same in the Primeval Age. The purple moon in the sky is a scene that only exists in this era. I like it very much. Yun Nuoxing sat on the edge of the fire god's temple. He looked up at the two moons that occupied the entire sky, one on the left and one on the right. There was a blank smile on his face. It was pure and without any other emotions. It was as if he had let go of all his worries. There were many people gathered on the platform. It was now time for the reign of stars to end. Most people had chosen to recover and cultivate. A small number of people were gathered in the fire god's temple. Some of them ran up to Yun Nuoxing and looked at him. Ever since he said that he might be leaving yesterday, the atmosphere in the Nine Gods' temple became a little gloomy. Those who lived in the town could clearly feel the faint sadness in the air. It was unknown how many people were sad at the same time to create such a strong gloomy atmosphere. Xian, Feng and Ming sat next to him and looked at him in a daze. They looked at him quietly and did not say anything. Such a quiet time was a little less for the countdown timer. They just wanted the time in this world to stop. Just like this, they wanted this moment to become eternal. This is such a beautiful scene. Yuan Shi and Nightmare sat under the god's tree. They poked the branches and shoots of the tree from time to time. Looking at the four people sitting on the edge of the temple, Yuan Shi could not help but sigh. He looked up at Little Purple Soul, who was riding on his shoulder, and asked, "Little Purple Soul, did your brother say anything special?" Little Purple Soul, who was humming softly, tilted her head and asked, "Something special?" "Yeah, I feel like none of us here know Little Star as well as you do, so I wanted to ask if you know anything special." The little girl bit her index finger and shook her head as she thought for a long time. Then, she waved her hands and said, "I don't know." Yuan Shi smiled bitterly. This mysterious little girl also had a time when she lost her usefulness. Shi Chen and Shi Yun, who were sitting beside Yuan Shi, were also looking at the four people in a daze. The mischievous Shi Yun wanted to go over, but she was stopped by her sister. "Give Big Brother and the others some time alone. Don't go and cause trouble." If Shi Yun was 100% obedient, she wouldn't be Shi Yun. If she wasn't afraid of her sister's hand chop and the big bump on her head, she would have really leaned over right now. Nightmare was unusually calm. He looked at the two little girls and suddenly grinned. "Shi Chen, Shi Yun, do you two have some special feelings for the boss?" The two little girls looked at him in unison, their little faces full of doubt. Special feelings? Before Nightmare could explain, Little Purple Soul kicked her feet a few times. Since Sister Shi Xian has that kind of feeling for Big Brother, Sister Shi Chen and Sister Shi Yun should have it too. The four of them looked at the little girl in a daze. Nightmare couldn't help but ask, You little girl, do you know about feelings?" Little Purple Soul lowered her head and stuck her tongue out at him. "You don't understand. Big Brother and Big Brother Yuan Shi both have partners. You're still single. The world is drunk, and I'm the only one who's awake. I'm the only one who's free to roam the world, leaving no clouds or wind behind me." Mocking the single dog was useless to Nightmare. He waved his hand and said, "Women will only affect the speed of my cultivation." He was quite forthright. His voice was quite loud. Everyone on the platform heard him. They all looked at him strangely. Nightmare had goosebumps all over his body. He smiled and sat down. "Let's talk about this in tens of millions of years. Tens of millions of years later. There's no rush, there's no rush." All right, at this point, the gloomy atmosphere suddenly disappeared. The four of them also calmed down. Yun Nuoxing tilted her head. "I said the same thing tens of eras ago. After that, for some reason, there was something wrong with the memory of the chain of heart that I put on myself in the ancient age. There was another part after that memory, but it didn't work. It failed." "Failed?" Hallmaster Shui walked closer curiously. "But isn't there a layer of chain of heart on you?" "Ah, that's right." Yun Nuoxing nodded. "That was probably something from the Dark Age. It's just that we haven't reached that time yet. I don't know what the specific situation is, but we will see it sooner or later. There are records in some ancient books. It is said that in those ancient times, there were indeed some heartless people with great perseverance. They used the chain of heart to seal their emotions. Those people later became eccentric lunatic." Hallmaster Jean said. "Oh, you mean those people? Those seals are definitely not the chain of heart." Yun Nuoxing hugged his knees and said, "The chains of the heart are used to suppress and control one emotion. The maximum effect is to completely seal off one emotion. However, the relative suppression of the other emotions will be much smaller. Moreover, once the seal is completed, it will basically not be released. The ones recorded in the ancient books are either incomplete chains of the heart or fake. Those who are completely emotionless seem to have sealed off all 7 emotions. They are no different from the living dead in terms of spirit." Everyone listened and let out a long sigh. Chu Yingzhan noticed a detail. "The seal will not be unsealed." "Then how did you unseal it?" "This." Yun Nuoxing scratched her head. Her face was full of distress. "How did I unseal it?" Feeling more than 20 eyes with different emotions looking at her, Yun Nuoxing could only shrug. "I don't know. It was unsealed for no reason. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't have the chance to sneak in." After saying that, she flicked Xian and Feng Er's forehead in annoyance. She subconsciously reached out to touch Ming. But before she could do that, she realized it and stopped in time. She coughed softly and pretended that nothing had happened. "If you don't want to, you can erase it and seal it again." Arrogant deity. Chu Yingzhan crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her eyes were full of disdain. Yun Nuoxing held the left side of her face and stared blankly for a few seconds. Although it makes sense. Xian and Feng looked at each other. They stuck out their tongues and didn't say anything. Then, Yun Nuoxing's voice rang in their ears. But it seems a little. Why are you all looking at me like that? Dozens of pairs of burning eyes stared at Yun Nuoxing. She was so shocked that she almost jumped off the top of the temple. Seeing that she was a little flustered, they waved their hands and said, "Don't mind us. Hurry up and tell us. You're all staring at me like that. How can I not mind? Okay, I'm a little. It's just that." She put her hands together and twirled her 2 index fingers together for a long time. Her beautiful face blushed a little. After I realized it, I'm a little reluctant. Okay, I've said it. You can laugh now. After saying that, Yun Nuoxing hurriedly pulled her hair and buried her face in it. After waiting for a long time, she didn't hear any laughter. She hesitated for a while, and quietly opened her hair to look outside. Everyone looked at her with gratified and warm expressions. Only then did she realize that the situation in front of her was not developing in the direction she had imagined. She was a little embarrassed. "What are you all looking at?" "We're looking at some idiot who finally understood." The Golden Princess scratched her hand on her head. "If you like it, then say it boldly. Don't be shy. I can't stand it anymore." "What's boldness?" Yun Nuoxing thought for a while. "Isn't it bold enough to crush hundreds of world orbs with one slap? Do you want to upgrade the standard a little? Let's see if we can wipe out an entire void region next time." The atmosphere was cold to the freezing point. Hallmaster Shui and the other girls couldn't help sweating. This boldness was not the other way around. This brat actually had such a straight face? Speaking of which, violence and boldness shouldn't go together, right? "Brother, you're pretending again." Ming extended her wings and patted Yun Nuoxing's head. "Brother likes to keep a straight face when he's trying to change the topic." Yun Nuoxing's expression froze. Everyone quickly turned around. As expected, they saw Yun Nuoxing's stiff smile and sweating. Only now did they realize that the brat was trying to change the topic. After all, he was a brat who had lived for dozens of eras. Even if he was a blockhead, it was impossible for him not to understand what that sentence meant. He was just trying to change the topic. Ahem. Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes at the little angel who suddenly became smart. "Ming, don't expose me. I'll panic." Yun Nuoxing looked at the little angel who looked bright and holy under the moonlight. He turned his eyes thoughtfully. He couldn't find the pair of rings. He didn't know whether the pair of rings on his and the little angel's hands didn't appear in the original history or he lost it later. After all, he couldn't take it off. Perhaps it was damaged in the battle. Chu Yingzhan looked at the 2 moons in the sky that were about to descend. She couldn't help but yawn. The moon is about to pass the zenith. Is your feeling reliable? Well, I can't say for sure. When I came back, I squeaked 1 day in advance. The next day, it was time for me to go back. I followed the path and came back. Yun Nuoxing shook his head. He couldn't tell if it was reliable or not. Feng tilted her head and looked at him. Suddenly, she had an idea. "Xingxing, do you have a way to take us there?" "Huh? What's wrong? You want to go to the Dark Age too?" Yun Nuoxing was stunned at first. Then, he shook his head. "I can't. I still haven't figured out the nature of this dream. It's like a dream but not a dream. There's something that acts as a bridge to pull me back to that era. I can't find this bridge. Also, the Dark Age is too chaotic. I don't know if taking you there will have any special effect on you at this time, so I haven't thought about it yet." "That's true," Feng muttered. She pressed her hand on the back of his hand and squeezed it gently. She pretended to giggle. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." Yun Nuoxing looked at her. He could more or less guess what this girl was thinking, but he didn't expose her. He wasn't a male chauvinist. It was just that the things in the Dark Age weren't something that could be dealt with by humans. Sometimes it was better for them not to come in contact with those things. Now that they had come in contact with a lot of things because of him, they needed some time to settle down. It was enough for him to know the ancient history of the past. Yun Nuoshing stood up and stretched. Suddenly, his expression froze. He put his hand on his chest and said, "There's a tremor. The feeling is getting stronger and stronger. There's not much time left." Hearing his strange words, Chu Yingzhan's mouth twitched. She threw a shocking sentence at his face. "Are you having a fetal movement?" Everyone and Yun Nuoshing were speechless. This girl will get into trouble because of her mouth one day. Ahem. Yun Nuoshing took a deep breath and pretended that he didn't hear that sentence. He opened his arms to Little Purple Soul and said with a smile, "Little Purple Soul, come here." The little girl laughed happily. She jumped down from Yuan Shi's shoulder and ran a few steps on the ground. Then, she jumped into Yun Nuoshing's arms and acted coquettishly. Yun Nuoshing's face was almost smoking. Yun Nuoshing pressed down on the head of the little fellow in his arms to make her stop. Yun Nuoshing's hands clasped under her arms and lifted the little girl forward. There was a doting and different expression in his eyes. "Little girl, it's almost time for you to grow up." At first, Little Purple Soul didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his words. She just pouted and snorted. But when she saw the unusual look in Yun Nuoshing's eyes, the little girl panicked a little. However, she pretended to be calm. "But, after so many years, you still haven't grown up." "You! Forget it. It doesn't matter." Yun Nuoshing dismissed his original idea. He smiled silently and hugged Little Purple Soul. He rubbed her face and said, "Well, as long as you're happy, nothing else matters." Little Purple Soul smiled and nodded. She kissed him on the cheek and rubbed against him for a while before jumping out of his arms and looking for Shi Lu and Shi Yun. Yun Nuoshing looked at the scene with a smile. Xian couldn't help but ask in his soul, "Little Star, do you know Little Purple Soul's origin?" Everyone also glanced at Yun Nuoshing curiously and vaguely. They did not ask openly and were all paying attention in their souls. They were all quite concerned about this little girl who had not grown up yet. After investigating for many years, there were no results. It was not appropriate for them to ask directly when it came to such matters. Now that they knew that Yun Nuoshing finally knew, they could not help but pay attention. "Well, there's a little clue. Since the little girl doesn't want to grow up, just let her be. There's nothing special that we need her help with." Yun Nuoshing nodded. You should finish. Don't just leave things hanging. You're driving me crazy." The Golden Princess glanced at him and whispered in his soul. "Actually, the little girl's soul changed a little after we brought her back from the East Sea. Didn't you notice that the little girl has become a lot smarter since then?" Everyone thought about it carefully and realized that it was true. Moreover, this intelligence wasn't just a little bit. The little girl knew a lot of things, and she even knew things that they didn't. When Yun Nuoshing sneaked out a few days ago, while they were still in a daze, she had already started sharing her consciousness with the fortress's consciousness. It was as if she had known about it for a long time. It's not that simple to be smart. Among this group of people, excluding you idiot, who dares to say that they know more than Little Purple Soul? Chu Yingzhan was very concerned. When she saw that everyone was silent, she said, "It's like the reincarnation of a big shot. Since the idiot mentioned that time in the East Sea, it might have awakened after that time. If it's the awakening of a big shot, I don't feel that kind of aura or unfathomable power. Other than the inexplicable immunity to energy, I can't tell anything else." The Empress said softly, "I've used the lapis lazuli to look at it many times, but I still can't tell anything. The lapis lazuli can identify all things in the world. Well, the method used by the lapis lazuli won't work. After all, the lapis lazuli stopped at the level of an enlightened master. Moreover, the answer can only be found out by oneself. Yun Nuoshing spread out his hands and said, "The little girl awakened after returning from the East Sea. This should be correct. However, after that, quarter moon, who was at the peak of the enlightened master. I still didn't find anything wrong, until now." The soul was silent for 3 seconds. Everyone widened their eyes in horror. Yun Nuoshing, who was at the peak of the enlightened master, also didn't find anything wrong. However, he, who was at the peak of the origin, found something different after returning this time. It was hard to believe that there was no cause and effect connection. So, who on earth is Little Purple Soul? Even Ming couldn't help but ask. Yun Nuoshing tilted his head and said, "It's hard to say. Everyone. I've overturned all my previous guesses. I'm still following that clue. Perhaps it's because I know too much and it's troublesome to rule it out. I still need some time to look at it. However, I can tell you that first, the little girl is not a reincarnated body. Second," he hesitated for a moment and said, "this is very important. You must not say it in front of Little Purple Soul." As soon as he said this, he saw that the little girl, Shi-Un and Shi-Un were playing happily. He paused for a moment and said, "Oh, I don't think it's a big deal. We have more than 1 or 2 non-human beings here. It doesn't matter. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. Second, Little Purple Soul is not a human." Everyone was stunned as if they had been struck by lightning. However, Lord Jean and the others quickly calmed down and said, I did speculate this before. After all, I heard from Saixia that Little Purple Soul was not even afraid of your sins. She must not be a normal person. But I didn't expect you to say that she's not a human." "Wait, boss." Nightmare jumped out in time and said, "Do you mean that Little Purple Soul doesn't treat Little Purple Soul as a human being?" Everyone smiled bitterly and said, "Is there a difference?" "There is a difference. Of course there is a difference." Yuan Shi added, "According to Little Star's standards, there are many explanations. She was originally a human, but after becoming a god, she no longer treats herself as a human. The second explanation is that she has nothing to do with humans. Just like Xian and Xian, they are dimensional beings. You can't possibly treat them as humans. Of course, the treatment is a matter of treatment. We are now investigating the root of the problem." Thinking about how they treated the 2-dimensional beings normally, they did not feel awkward. Over time, they also treated them as 2 little girls. It seemed that there was no problem. Demon beast? Demon beast? Demon race? Or some other special being? Little Qing's green Mei Mao twinkled as she glanced at the little girl from time to time. "None of them." Yun Nuoshing shook her head. Everyone was shocked. If none of them were, then the problem was huge. The little girl should be something special. I really can't say for sure. I've already eliminated 90% of my guesses, but the remaining 10% still leaves about 100,000 possibilities. You see, my knowledge covers the entire void and the entire Deyuan realm, and no one can guarantee that the Little Purple Soul is a native of the realm of the gods, right? Every era, there are so many living beings that the Eastern Sea can't even fit all of them. It's also possible that she's an alien. Looking at his troubled expression, everyone was troubled as well. Sure enough, knowing too much was not always a good thing. He fiddled with his long hair for a while and said, "I will try my best to look for it in the Dark Age. Anyway, I should have the answer the next time I come back. But if Little Purple Soul doesn't want to, I won't say it out loud." Everyone smiled bitterly and said, "That's true, but you're driving us to our deaths. Speaking halfway was like trying to kill someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder." "Well, hee." Yun Nuoshing laughed embarrassedly. He was about to say something, but his body suddenly went limp. He quickly turned his whole body and fell toward Ziyen. Ziyen, who was slightly surprised, quickly caught him. Chu Yingzhan jumped a few steps back and said, "Idiot, don't mess around. There are so many people here watching. If you want to show off your affection, wait until we leave, woof. Palace Master Jean and the others covered their faces. Could the fragrance in the air be the smell of the legendary dog food? Yun Nuoxing could not even turn her head. Her eyelids were about to close. She laughed bitterly, but her voice did not sound sleepy at all. What are you thinking? Time's up. Everyone suddenly came to their senses. Suddenly, they felt their consciousness slipping away from their bodies. They suddenly remembered that today was the day they were going to leave. Xian bent down and carried Yun Nuoxing to the middle of the platform. Little Purple Soul and the other two girls also felt the movement and quickly made way for Xian to place Yun Nuoxing under the God's tree. The 3-meter-tall tree suddenly emitted a golden light and cast a soft golden light on the platform. Xian carefully placed Yun Nuoxing on the light. Seeing that Yun Nuoxing seemed to sink into the sofa and lay down softly, Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Nuoxing's eyelids were already trembling. She was about to close her eyes completely due to exhaustion. She was sweating profusely. It was so awkward to be stared at like this, just like, "It's like they're worshipping a corpse." Chu Yingzhen could not help but say this sentence. The group was shocked and glared at her. It seems that I'm not surprised by this kind of thing anymore. It seems like it's happened many times. Well, I'm the one being worshipped. I'm used to it. Yun Nuoxing was still talking about this topic calmly. Everyone was stunned. I have a feeling that this trip will take a long time. Maybe it will last until the end of the Dark Age. Be careful of the underworld and the void. They could turn the entire De Yuan realm upside down in the past. This time, they must be plotting something. The celestial realm has no defensive measures and no defensive power. Repair the creation's barrier as soon as possible. That's the last defense of the celestial realm. They didn't attack the celestial realm directly. They must be afraid of something. It shouldn't be me. It should be something else. They're probing or something else. The Supreme of Sua said that there are still secrets about the battle back then. I have to go and understand some of the lost history. Maybe I can. If you encounter a problem that you can't solve no matter what, use the key to touch the origin mark on me. Hide in the origin world. That's the place where the origin great deity fell. There is a consciousness there. That world should be unbreakable in this era. Take care of yourselves. When I'm not around, be careful. Looking at Yun Nuoxing, who had fallen into a deep sleep and completely lost consciousness, Xian could not help but sigh. The little fool is gone. Palace Master Shui sighed softly. Looking at the space of the Fire God Shrine, he turned to Palace Master Jean and the others and said, "We have to work hard too. Well, the time of peace is over. We have to take that step. We've been ready for a long time." Palace Master Jean nodded. Okay. You guys go and break through. We'll guard the shrine." Seeing Xian looking at Yun Nuoxing reluctantly, Princess Jean sighed. She could not help but say, "Okay, don't be too sad. Little Star will come back eventually. No one will have any objections if you want to guard here. However, the conditions here are so good. It's a bit of a waste to just guard here. Do you understand what I mean?" Xian nodded. "Yes, I just want to look at her for a while longer." "That's easy." Just as everyone sighed, they heard a giggling voice coming from the platform. They turned around and saw Little Purple Soul climbing up the barrier's close. After a while, she sat on the barrier's shoulder. She lowered her head and asked, "Can you find her? Can you find her? The time and space are too far apart. However, we can occasionally share some fragments." The barrier's consciousness nodded. Everyone. All in all, the sadness of parting had completely vanished into thin air. "Come, let's watch the boss brave the Dark Age." Nightmare sat down as if she was waiting for a good show to start. Everyone was furious. "All of you, go and cultivate," Princess Jean roared. Everyone shrunk their necks. "Don't look. No. Don't keep looking. It's okay to look at her when you have time, but cultivate for the rest of your time. Do you hear me?" The group of girls who were staring at her shrunk their necks and whispered, "Oh, okay." Everyone did not know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 1334. The flow of his consciousness felt like his body was sinking into the sea, and the seawater was dragging him down bit by bit. The sinking feeling quickly spread from the middle of his body to the rest of his body, but he could not tell whether he was floating or diving. He followed the gentle undercurrent and was drawn into the depths bit by bit until a faint light burst out from the whole world and gradually became brighter. The feeling of sinking into the water gradually faded, and his vision was drowned by the light. This was not the first time Yun Nuoxing had entered this state, the wandering of his consciousness. This time, he clearly felt a strange throbbing coming from the depths of his soul. It was probably the sea of consciousness that had built a bridge between the two dimensions, allowing his consciousness to enter and switch in a certain state. However, he had not mastered the method of actively entering and diving into the sea of consciousness. When he learned that he could move back and forth between the two dimensions, he had tried a few times, but it was difficult to succeed. Firstly, he could not sense where the sea of consciousness was in his soul. Secondly, there was no other way. He could not even touch it, let alone try it. Perhaps this level of switching was still a passive skill. Putting those aside, the current state made him feel inexplicably comfortable and relaxed. Diving into the sea of consciousness was the closest feeling he could think of, but it was difficult to imagine what it was like to describe it in detail. Putting this question aside, he decided to float up first. Immersing in the sea of consciousness for a long time, even if it was quiet and there was no movement, he was afraid that he would drown in this strange place. Splash! Like a big fish leaping out of the water, the sound of water splashing rang in his ears. He could not see the sun and the sky because the dazzling light had occupied his eyes and then slowly dimmed. When his consciousness leaped out of the deep and boundless sea, he felt that he had regained control of something. Yun Nuoxing opened his eyes and saw the ceiling of a room in front of him. It was slightly familiar. He seemed to have slept in this place before. The sunlight from the window was blocked by a thin bamboo mat, so it was not glaring. Subconsciously, he used the Book of Epochs to check the time. 51 epoch. He came to this time again, but it was a year after he left this place. Had he slept here for a whole year? Or had Feng Ling recovered in the past year? He recalled that when he fell, he should have walked into a room with a metal box. Now that he opened his eyes, he realized that something was wrong. Another year had passed. He would not believe that nothing had happened during this time. Creak! There was a hurried sound coming from the door. It seemed that someone outside had sensed his signs of waking up and had rushed in. Their footsteps were a little messy. When the door opened with a sound, Yun Nuoxing turned her head stiffly and saw a beautiful figure walking in under the sunlight. The slanted light shone on her youthful and beautiful face, making her sweat a little. Siyu was stunned for a while. After a moment, she didn't even have time to close the door. She hurriedly walked to Yun Nuoxing's side and placed her lily-white hands directly on his neck and wrist, as if she was taking his pulse and checking his condition. Yun Nuoxing was suspicious but didn't say anything. It should be said that he didn't dare to say anything. If something really happened in the past year and he said something wrong, he would be exposed. It was better to observe for now. After a while, Siyu relaxed and sat back on a bamboo chair. Mei Mao was still in shock. "You? Little star, you really came back to life?" It was a familiar address. It seemed that it was indeed a continuation of that dream, but it skipped a year. However, the content made him confused. "What do you mean I came back to life? You make it sound like I died." Yun Nuoxing thought that Siyu was joking. A strange smile appeared on his face, but when he saw the little girl nodding seriously, he was stunned. "You died. You slept for a year and your aura and divine soul were completely gone. Master Hui was also awakened once. he said. What's left here is only an empty shell. If the heavenly god of origin is really dead, he wouldn't leave his body behind if he didn't make deliberate preparations. Feng must have left this shell behind for some purpose. We didn't. Siyu's expression was strange. She turned her head and said, "We didn't bury you. We just left you in this room." There were obvious signs that his clothes had been changed, and he finally remembered that this room was this little girl's room. I think I know what happened. So, you've been taking care of my shell for the past year? Siyu blushed and turned her head away. It's big sister, Ming, who has been taking care of it. I come here occasionally to help. The last sentence was so soft that even she couldn't hear it, but it drilled into Yun Nuoxing's ears without missing a word. He couldn't help but laugh dryly. Well, thank you in advance. Yun Nuoxing reached out his hand and pressed on Siyu's head. Then, he turned over and was about to get down. Siyu quickly reached out and held him up. He smiled and waved his hand to show that he could move. I didn't expect to be taken as dead. I didn't make it clear. After all, I didn't expect this to happen. You've been sleeping for a year. Siyu heard something, but she didn't dare to ask. She stopped talking halfway. My divine soul went out. It went to a faraway place to see something. Yun Nuoxing said vaguely. He waved his hand. Let's not talk about this. Where did Hui and that idiot go? Master Hui woke up a month after you fell asleep in Little Star. He stayed here for a month and then went somewhere else. Big sister Ming is helping to repair the creation's barrier. Brother I Ching and the others, they're still repairing the creation's barrier? Yun Nuoxing was stunned. I've already taken care of it before I went into hibernation. It should be done in half a year. It's been half a year. Why is it still? Before he could finish his sentence, a dull rumbling sound came from the sky. No, the sound originated from this world. The observer's intuition told him that this sound originated from the entire realm of the gods. The entire realm of the gods was emitting this sound, and it was not caused by an earthquake or any other movement. It sounded like a stomachache. Repair. Yun Nuoxing was stunned as he finished his sentence. Then, he shook his head fiercely. What's wrong with that? What happened in the past year that I wasn't around? I don't know the details, but they told me something, Siyu said softly. The reason they told her was probably because they wanted her to tell him something when he came back. Something happened after Master Hui disappeared for a month or two. Big sister Ming and brother I Ching said that the realm of the gods' self-repair ability had decreased to different degrees. This is also the reason why the creation's barrier is being repaired so slowly. Brother I Ching said that the progress was almost stagnant and had to be repaired manually, something like that. That's not a small matter. Yun Nuoxing's face was a little gloomy. He thought for a moment, grabbed Siyu's hand and dragged her to the edge of the sky. Let's talk as we go. Something that can affect the creation's barrier's repair speed must be related to the realm of the gods itself. After all, we only need to repair the core of the damaged areas. The rest will self-repair. But now we need to repair it until it's fully recovered. Has the realm of the gods' self-repair ability disappeared? Siyu blinked and guessed. Maybe that's what happened. But I don't know what caused it. TSK. I didn't expect to run into trouble as soon as I came back. Plus, it's the trouble from last time. It's not good to just sit back and do nothing. This foundation, it's related to the foundation of the realm of the gods itself. It's better not to use it casually. Yun Nuoxing sighed. It didn't take long for the two to reach the nearest creation's barrier. As soon as they saw someone standing at the edge of the barrier and were about to go there, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. Yun Nuoxing pulled Siyu to a stop and stared at the person who appeared in front of them. It was a girl of 14 or 15 years old, wearing a light yellow dress. Well, it was Yuan Kong. The little girl came out of the space with a vigilant and unapproachable expression. When she saw Yun Nuoxing and Siyu, she was stunned. Then, her face turned pale in 2 seconds. She turned and ran, screaming, "Wah! Big sister! That pervert came back to life. I told you that I wanted to buy a coffin, but you didn't believe me." This time, he finally came back to life. Yun Nuashing and Siyu were speechless. Bang! Before Yun Nuashing could think of suppressing the little girl with smoke coming out of her mouth, a light flashed in the distance and knocked Yuan Kong away. It also left a golden ring to tie up the little girl. Then, it rushed straight toward Yun Nuashing. Siyu was scared silly when she saw this scene. At this time, when she saw the light coming toward them, or more specifically, toward Yun Nuashing, she quickly let go of Yun Nuashing's hand and slipped to the side. As soon as she stepped away, she saw the light carrying Yun Nuashing away. That speed made her sweat. Speaking of which, she just heard a strange collision and screams. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? Seeing the light rushing over without reservation, Yun Nuashing was already prepared. However, when the oppressive feeling came toward her, she couldn't help but feel like a meteorite was flying toward her at the speed of light. She only felt that her hair was being pulled back by the wind, and then she felt pain in her chest. The surrounding scenery was moving backward rapidly in the blue, and red light. She just felt a little pain in her waist, and it seemed like her chest also hurt. "Where have you been all this time?" He grinned and opened his eyes when he heard the sound. He saw a pair of beautiful golden eyes that almost filled his entire vision. A pair of pure white wings filled up all the gaps in his vision. Feeling a pair of slender arms around his waist, Yun Nuashing also hugged the little angel in his arms and smiled awkwardly for a while. "I went back for a while." 139th era? Yes. I didn't tell you that day because you were so happy. It was a sudden feeling. I didn't know why I suddenly went back. You went back for so long? I thought something really happened to you. You were lying there without making a sound. Well, actually, I only went back for 5 days. I didn't expect it to be a year. Okay. It's my fault for not telling you. At that time, I didn't know what would happen, so I didn't prepare anything. The little angel was silent for a while. She pressed her face against his face and pursed her red lips tightly. Suddenly, she said, "Did you tell her?" "Who? What did I say?" Yun Nuashing was stunned. "Okay. It looks like you didn't say anything. What a blockhead." The little angel sighed faintly. It took a long time for Yun Nuashing to realize what she was talking about. After a long "oh," she couldn't help but smile bitterly. "There's nothing I can do. The realm of the gods has things to do there. I don't have the time to talk about it. You can't expect me to talk about it in front of everyone. Like hell I'd believe you. I'm 80% sure you don't remember it." Okay. You're right. I didn't care about it because of other things. Yun Nuashing smiled bitterly. Seeing that she seemed to want to say something, she quickly changed the topic. Stop. If we continue this topic, it feels like it's going to become strange." Yun Nuashing let out a sigh of relief after she briefly explained what happened back in the realm of the gods and successfully diverted the little angel's attention. "The Suja continent, the planet that's very close to my world. I didn't expect them to still be there in the 139th era. And that heavenly god of destruction. You went to that place again and there were changes. It seems like she did go there once. If memory serves me right, she will return there in 10 eras." She thought for a while. "Say, where do you think the heavenly god of origins is now?" "You've got me there. How would I know where the heavenly god of origins is now?" Yun Nuashing thought, maybe she's still in the cycle of reincarnation. Otherwise, why wouldn't she show up when such a big thing happened in this world? Oh, things aren't particularly serious now, so it's not time for her to show up? That makes sense. Hearing this, the little angel shook her head slightly. "No. Oh, you don't know yet. Forget it, I'll tell you later." Later? Yun Nuashing was stunned. Before she could react, she was dragged away again. She watched as the little angel carried her around and went back to find Yuan Kong, who had been knocked away, and Siyu, who was still in a daze. Then, she brought the two little girls back to the small mountain. On the way back, Yuankong kept staring at Yun Nuoxing and muttered, "The beast who stole my big sister. Pervert! And so intimate. F***ck. Yuankong had tried very hard to suppress her voice, but her voice was so soft that even Siyu could hear it clearly. The three of them were speechless. The little angel couldn't take it anymore. She knocked Yuankong's head with her knife and said in a gentle voice, "Don't talk nonsense. He's your brother-in-law." Yun Nuoxing's face was sweating even more. He couldn't refute it, but if he didn't refute it, it didn't seem like there was anything wrong with it. It was better not to worry about it. After settling the two little girls on the small mountain, the little angel dragged Yun Nuoxing into the god realm. Oh no, it didn't charge. It just stood on the mountain next to it and teleported. Furthermore, Yun Nuoxing could see that they were teleporting to the deeper space of the god realm. It was just like the independent space of his observer, which was located at the bottom of the god realm and used to imprison criminals. Now that those people were all dead, there were no new visitors to that space for the time being. Where are we going? Yun Nuoxing tilted his head and looked at it. He could only feel that they were going deeper and deeper, but he didn't know where they were going. The bottom of the god realm. "We is waiting for you there," it said simply. Then, after thinking for a moment, it said, "I wonder if you heard a rumble from the god realm when you just arrived?" "I heard it. What does that have to do with we?" Yun Nuoxing suddenly froze and broke out in cold sweat. "Don't tell me that bastard went to reactivate the Origin Heavenly God's protection himself?" "Yes." It nodded. "But he seems to have encountered some problems. First, it affected the rules of the God realm. Secondly, I don't know. He is now trapped in that space to suppress the turbulent Origin energy. He needs your help." Yun Nuoxing tilted his head and looked at the little angel. When the girl was talking about these things, she grabbed his hand tightly, as if she was afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. The last time he borrowed the Origin energy to resonate with the timeline, it stood beside him and watched. At that time, he suddenly touched the Origin energy with his hand, and it really scared the hell out of her. He reached out and patted the little angel's hair. "Don't worry, it should be fine. This time is different from the last time. This time, my energy is also tainted with the aura of the Origin energy. I can't be at ease." It glanced at him and lowered its eyelids slightly. There was a hint of bitterness in its low voice. "Every time you say don't worry, but when did you really let others feel relieved? If I didn't know that only you and he can solve this problem, I wouldn't have let you come here." Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly. He finally understood that the little angel was talking about the last time he fiddled with the Origin energy and the sudden disappearance this time. Yun Nuoxing shook his head and reached out to stroke the little angel's long hair. He did not say anything about these things. In fact, he also knew his own virtue. If it was so easy to change, he would not be Yun Nuoxing. The teleportation lasted for 5 minutes and then stopped. Yun Nuoxing and the little angel stood firmly on the ground. This place was different from the place where the timeline resonated. Looking around, there was a red mountain range in the distance. The sky was also a strange dark red, and there were colorful energy lines hanging in the sky, circling in an arc. And under their feet was a blue ice field, clean and clear, which could be used as a mirror to reflect the dark red sky. This space. Yun Nuoxing frowned. This space actually had the appearance of a real sky. He had thought that it would be a strange space like that independent space. Oh, in that case, this space was strange enough, but he felt that it was even more strange. Yun Nuoxing looked at the scene in front of him in surprise. He felt as if he had come to a strange space in the depths of a dream. The ice field under his feet. He thought it was an ice field, but in fact it was like a swamp of ice. He could step on it with a little force, and it would take a little effort to pull it out. However, if he walked on the ice surface lightly, it would be like an ordinary ice surface. The red mountains in the distance would emit a red aura, as if those auras had dyed the sky red. Then, in another direction, a piece of the not fixed dark red sky collapsed. It fell from the sky like magma streaking across space bit by bit, and it quickly piled up a red mountain range on the ground. There was also a river that was mixed with light purple and light blue. There was no other movement for the time being. This place is like a certain space in the depths of a dream, Yun Nuoxing could not help but say. The sky did not look like a real sky, the mountains were not mountains, and the ice was not ice. Everything was imagined. The imagined things maintained a fragile balance, just like the world in a child's mind. Everything could be changed at will, but it would not be fixed. It was worth mentioning that when the dark red color in the sky faded, Yun Nuoxing could still see a reflection of the land hanging in the sky. It was as ethereal and blurry as a mirage. He could only see a light blue and light purple forest. Those trees were all pointed at the land on this side of the land like the tip of a knife. It was creepy. Hui! Yun Nuoxing shouted into the distance. After waiting for a while, he did not get a response. He could not help but look at the little angel. Strange, there is no response. It also shook its head in confusion. But I know where he is. If he did not notice us, we can only run there ourselves. In this strange space, Yun Nuoxing's cheeks twitched. He had a feeling that he would encounter some strange things here. Chapter 1335. At the bottom of the realm of the gods there was a strange space that was completely different from the real world. Common sense was completely lost here. Everything one saw and knew was something they had never seen before. It was as if they had plunged into a world that was entirely made of amorphous materials. It was like the world at the bottom of a child's dream. It was naive and simple, but too abstract. This space is so desolate. Yun Nuoxing looked into the distance and could not help but frown. There were many things in this space, but it seemed a little monotonous. Everything repeated its own appearance, one fixed or two strange things that were constantly changing. He subconsciously stepped on the ice field a few times and looked in all directions. Then, he used his hands to make a few gestures in the space. If there is any need to make a move in this place, I don't know if it will affect anything. Why don't we try it? As the little angel spoke, she waved her jade-like hand in front of her. An energy storm condensed from divine power bloomed in the distance. It shot up into the sky and engulfed the dark red sky of the mountains, turning it into a golden-red storm. When the storm disappeared, the things that had been blown apart regrouped in less than a minute and returned to their original appearance. However, the arrangement of the mountains and the patterns in the sky had been reorganized. The power of the rules. Yun Nuoxing's eyes flashed. He reached out his hand and triggered a weak energy vibration in the distance. After a moment, he nodded and confirmed something. Yes, it is the power of the rules. The energy that can be used in this space seems to be the power of the rules. There is no other energy aura. The strength depends on the power of the rules. Probably, but there is something else. Let me see. Yun Nuoxing looked into the distance. His eyelids drooped slightly, and there was some silver-white light in his eyes. After about 2 minutes, he returned to normal. He looked at the little angel and said, "The space is a little shaky. It seems that it has reached the limit of what it can carry." The little angel heard him and sensed it herself. Her expression was a little strange. The last time I came here, there was no such situation. And this kind of turbulence seems to be able to affect the realm of the gods. It's probably because I came in this time. Since the energy used in this place is the power of laws, and the energy contained here is also closely related to the power of laws, then the stability of this space might also be related to the power of laws. If that's the case, if a life form with an excessively strong power of laws enters this space, it's very likely that the foundation of this space will be shaken and its stability will decrease. Yun Nuoshing raised her head and gave her analysis. I've just observed the extent and movement of the shaking. If I don't want to affect the realm of the gods at all, I'll have to leave within 3 days and leave the spatial capacity to Hui. There shouldn't be anything that requires the use of large amounts of energy in this place, right? Yun Nuoshing lowered her head and looked into the distance. She smacked her lips. It would be terrible if there was a need to use energy. What will happen? Nothing much. The worst-case scenario is that this space will collapse. Then, who knows what kind of effect it will have. It's just like gambling. But this is related to the realm of the gods, so it's best not to gamble casually. It would be better if we could find Hui easily. Yun Nuoshing took out a token and waved it around the space. But, to his disappointment, the token did not respond. It seemed that this little thing that had the aura of the other party in this space would not allow him to find the guy who was playing hide and seek. The little angel saw his actions and guessed what he was thinking. Suddenly, she remembered something. She squatted down and rubbed the ice field that looked like ice but was not ice. I remember him telling me that if there was a chance, there was a way to find him. I found him. Yun Nuoshing lowered her head and looked at the egg-shaped golden sword that had appeared at her feet. The tip of the sword pointed into the distance as if it was pointing to a destination. Easy to understand. Easy to understand, my ass. If it was not for the tacit understanding between the two, Yun Nuoshing would have to spend a lot of time to understand the meaning of this strange pattern. Sure enough, teleportation won't work. If I use the laws of the universe to teleport, the amount of laws used will be too large, and it will disturb the stability of this space. Yun Nuoshing tried to activate all kinds of teleportation method. Although he found a useful method, he decisively gave up after trying it. After all, this was not the kind of space in the real world where he could casually mess around. In this space where a casual move could affect the real-world space, if he still messed around, it was purely because he felt that he had nothing better to do and wanted to work extra hours for himself. After thinking about it, Yun Nuoshing decided to run over with the little angel. Just as they moved forward, the golden longsword imprinted on the ground like an arrowhead suddenly appeared and pointed straight ahead. It was still spinning around its central axis, as if it was attracting their attention. So, we just have to walk in this straight line? Yun Nuoshing put her hand on her forehead and looked into the distance. She pulled the little angel and jumped a long distance away. A crack appeared in the space behind them because of their fast movement. It was as if the sky had suddenly opened up in a dense forest, revealing the scenery below. The crack lasted for a full minute before gradually dissipating. Yun Nuoshing's laws of the universe were too powerful. A casual movement could cause a huge commotion. The commotion caused by this space was considered small. Little star, where did you go? The tremors in the god world are getting stronger and stronger. It seems like the entire god world is having an earthquake. The two of them had just walked for a while when this sentence rang in Yun Nuoshing's mind. She couldn't help but tremble and squint her eyes. It seemed that entering this strange space had affected the stability of the god world's laws. Then, she could also confirm where the self-healing that had mysteriously disappeared in the god world had gone. It was probably because of Huey's entry. Time is of the essence, so I won't say much. This is the commotion caused by our hard work. You don't have to be nervous. It should be resolved soon. Go and inform I Ching and Ching Jun, tell them to guard the god world and don't let there be any riots in any area. After hearing this, there was no other sound. Siyu was slightly stunned. It seemed like Little Star was right. The situation over there was a little urgent. That's why it's not easy to use this identity sometimes. Yun Nuoshing complained as she walked. My law is too strong. Part of the reason is because of myself, and the other part is because of my identity as the observer of the god world. My karma is too entangled with the god world, and now it's a little difficult to distinguish. Hui is the same. If it's just one of us entering this space, it won't be a problem. But if the two of us enter together with you, girl, this space will explode. If you have any complaints, why don't you just resign? She couldn't help but mutter. I don't have any complaints, but I do complain occasionally. As for resigning, at most, I'll take an indefinite vacation. This priesthood is lifelong. You see, it's already 139 eras, and I'm still the observer. Yun Nuoshing shrugged and smiled bitterly. An indefinite vacation. She smiled bitterly. If it was a vacation, it would be true. Even though he had been reincarnating in the lower realm for so many years, the observer's priesthood had never changed. It was as if it had to be him. Even after reincarnation, he would still be appointed as the observer of the god world. It was inconceivable. This tyrant's contract was too overbearing. A big crack that cut across the ice field appeared in front of them, blocking Yun Nuoshing and the others' path. She couldn't help but be stunned. When she saw the long ravine, she wanted to fly into it. Thinking of the movement she made when she flew up, she tried her best to stop herself. She couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to take a detour, she heard a rumbling sound. Rumble! There was a low rumbling sound, as if something was rampaging with the momentum of an army. First, it shook the space, then the ice field, and the sky. Yun Nuoshing quickly looked around, but he didn't see anything that could cause such a movement. He exchanged a glance with the little angel, and then they both felt something at the same time. They raised their heads together and saw a rainbow falling from the sky. No, it wasn't a rainbow, but a huge, flowing waterfall. The sky collapsed, and the waterfall that was condensed from the energy of thousands of rules gathered and fell down. The brilliant light was so colorful that it almost blinded Yun Nuoshing's eyes. However, at this moment, he just wanted to raise his middle finger and curse, because the rainbow waterfall was coming for them. To be more specific, the rainbow rushed toward the huge crack in the ice field in front of them and plunged into it. The water on both sides hit the ice wall of the crack with a violent impact, causing the entire ice field to shake. As for Yun Nuoshing and the others, they were dumbfounded at the moment. Aren't we going to run? The little angel's face was pale as she pulled Yun Nuoshing's arm. Even they, who could only use the power of rules, were swept into the terrifying energy torrent at this moment. They wouldn't die, but the extent of their injuries would depend on their luck. Girl, open your realm of rules. Yun Nuoshing carried the little angel up without saying a word. His eyes flashed wildly as he looked at the energy waterfall that fell from the sky like a curtain that covered their vision. Are you going to rush over? He was shocked and wanted to struggle, but he realized that he was being hugged so tightly that he couldn't move. Little star, calm down. There are thousands of energy of rules gathered there. Even the heavens don't know what will happen if we rush in rashly. It's not safe at all. Why don't we go around? Hey! Don't! Wah! Yun Nuoshing took a few steps forward, then hugged the little angel, who was shrieking in his arms with a pale face, and rushed out of the crack with a trail of white frost. The latter could only subconsciously open her rule domain, then tightly wrapped him with her wings, her mind blank. Yun Nuoshing took a deep breath and adjusted his body slightly. He retracted his legs and prepared to kick out. In this short moment, they had plunged into the colorful energy torrent. The unparalleled explosive energy swept past them, but was blocked by a thin layer of the realm of rules. When he was about to lose his strength halfway, Yun Nuoshing's retracted legs suddenly kicked out. Using the rainbow-like waterfall wall as a starting point, he rushed out again. He rushed out from the other end of the colorful energy torrent and then landed steadily on the ice surface at the other end with the little angel. No, it was no longer the ice surface. The place where they landed was a dark red mountain range. Standing at this end of the storm was very close to the ground. Looking at the bottom of the storm, they realized that it was more magnificent and bigger than they imagined. It spread to the left and right, and it was difficult to see the end of it even when they looked at it. Ugh! How did we get here safely? The little angel trembled and opened her eyes. She couldn't help but be stunned when she found that she was completely fine. You didn't even make such a big commotion when we passed through the God-destroying storm. You just passed through some abandoned realm of rules. Why are you so exaggerated? Yun Nuoshing looked at her and couldn't help but shake his head. She muttered a meaningless syllable and slowly struggled out of his arms. Looking at the colorful waterfall behind her, she couldn't help but ask, "What did you say that was?" "The power of the precepts that settled in the celestial realm. I just figured it out. If we compare the precepts to a lump of mud, destroying the precepts would either destroy its shape, reduce its mass, or change its nature. However, the part that was changed is only a small part compared to the whole." "Where do you think it went?" Yun Nuoshing asked. "Last time, you said that it all settled at the bottom of the sea of rules, right?" Yun Nuoshing nodded and pointed at the rainbow waterfall. "This seems to be the process. It's just a flood of abandoned rules. It doesn't have much destructive power. It's just that the huge size and scale of the waterfall created a sense of oppression. Most importantly, you're scaring yourself. It's actually not that powerful." The little angel blushed and punched his chest in embarrassment. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Yun Nuoshing laughed dryly. "I only realized it when I was passing by. I was going to force my way through. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to hold up the realm of rules." "So you were going to take another risk just now?" Habit. Ahem. Let's move on." Yun Nuoshing laughed dryly. Feeling indignant, the little angel stared at the rainbow waterfall behind her without blinking. Looking away from its terrifying appearance, it was just like looking at the storm of divine destruction again. But it didn't have the patterns and the sacred oppression of the latter. It was different in many ways, but it was just as beautiful. But when she remembered that it was a fragment of the abandoned rules of the realm of the gods, she had a strange feeling. Does the realm of the gods throw away so many abandoned rules every day? Of course not. Yun Nuoshing shook her head. Haven't they been repairing the creation's barrier recently? The repair of the damaged parts have created brand new rules. The old parts will naturally be washed away. Also, it's probably a time-lapse. The flood doesn't happen all the time. It should only be opened when the worn-out garbage has accumulated to a certain extent. We can only say that we're lucky to have seen it by chance. Indeed, putting aside all the other strange reasons, we found the rainbow waterfall very spectacular. But time was of the essence, and there were more important things at hand, so he didn't have time to look at it. The two stopped and looked at it for a few minutes. Then, hand in hand, they dashed into the distance. First, they could not teleport, and second, they could not fly. They could only jump and run between the strange mountains and forests, and they could not use any energy. But even so, their speed was very fast. In less than 10 minutes, they had crossed the strange dark red mountain range, and then a plain full of frost-colored weed. Yun Nuoshing recognized many things, and gradually, he had a more detailed understanding of this space. This space could be seen as an abstract fantasy scene of the rules of the realm of the god. Everything, even if it was just a faint difference in color, represented a kind of rule power. Take the frost-colored grass for example, it was full of vitality. He could feel that it was a little similar to the life that existed in the realm of the god. The rainbow waterfall far away just now had said that it was a flood, and the dark red mountain range and the rising smoke. It was probably some kind of more abstract phenomenon, but without reference he could not understand it for a while. This is an abstraction of the rules of the realm of the gods. When the power of the realm of the gods and the rules themselves become objects, it's easy to perform any special operations. And those operations will most likely affect the realm of the gods, or influence it with the power of the realm of the gods. I think I know what he wants to do. But that guy is really brave. It's a very dangerous move, and he might even lose himself first. Lose himself? It was shocked. Staying in this world of abstract rules for too long, even our bodies will be tainted with part of the aura here. The assimilation here will try to abstract the rules on our bodies. In short, when the assimilation happens, your wings might become a mountain range that stretches for tens of thousands of miles, your hair might become a river, your breath would become the air here, and so on. Yun Nuashing said, twirling her fingers. Fortunately, the rules on our bodies are strong and solid. It won't be that easy to be assimilated, and a considerable part of the rules comes from the realm of the god. It will take a very, very long time for the space here to assimilate the rules on our bodies. There's no need to worry for the time being. You're special too, so there's no need to worry. A flash of energy suddenly swept across the sky like a meteor with a long trail of energy flames. But the difference was that it didn't fall down. Instead, it suddenly made a sharp turn when it fell to a certain extent. Then, it spun in a huge circle on the plane where it stopped for a whole minute before disappearing. It was like a reckless meteor that couldn't find its landing spot. That meteor got lost? The little angel tilted her head and said blankly, "Well, let's keep going. According to the direction it pointed out, we should be almost there. Look at this." Yun Nuashing laughed dryly for a while. Then, she found something on the ground and quickly bent down. There was a huge orange mark on the ground. It looked like the mark left behind by a mole, but it was much bigger. Upon closer inspection, it was very neat. It was a huge thing. The mud and orange were just its lines. It almost looked like the real thing. Yun Nuashing raised her head and looked at the orange and mud lines. She saw an arched object growing bigger and bigger. It looked like a huge snake that was crawling on the ground. It gradually spread into the distance. When they saw the end of the huge snake, both of them couldn't help but be shocked. Thousands of huge orange and mud snakes descended from all directions and even the sky. Parts of their bodies slithered in all directions, but when they approached the place where they gathered, they all curled up together like knotted chains. They formed a hollow ball together and locked something inside. And inside the ball, Yun Nuashing could clearly see a white figure sitting cross-legged in the ball formed by the huge snake. His body and neck were covered with small orange snakes, as if they were sealed. The figure sitting cross-legged in the ball also felt something and opened his eyes. When he saw the two of them, he smiled brightly. "Yo. Yun Nuashing and the little angel. Is this the time to say yo?" Chapter 1336. Giant orange snakes stained with mud came from all directions, under the ground and in the sky. It was like a giant snake nest, a giant snake mountain range. Sitting in the center of the mountain range was the guardian, who had disappeared for a long time. Yun Nuashing and the others ran here but did not see any movement from him. His current condition. Yun Nuashing could not tell if his condition was good or not. Just from the surface, it might not be too good. "How did you end up like this?" "Forget it, let's talk about it after I get you out." Yun Nuashing was halfway through his sentence when he realized that this was not a good opportunity to reminisce about the past. He immediately condensed his rule force and was about to split the snakes that were entangled in a nest. However, Hui hurriedly said something to stop him. Hey, wait. I made this seal myself. The purpose is to suppress this place. If you slash me, I will be reduced to ashes along with this bottom world." Seeing Yun Nuashing stop in confusion, Hui heaved a sigh of relief. He pointed at the giant snake sitting below and said, "Below here is the spring of that thing. If I leave it there at the beginning, there won't be any movement. Just say it." A few months ago I was a little anxious. I came here to use the origin energy to restart the protection of the heavenly god of origin. I didn't expect their reaction to be so big. They almost buried me. Hui smiled awkwardly. Yun Nuashing took a deep breath and said, "That is to say, The seal under your ** is suppressing the violent origin energy, right? Hui trembled and nodded with a dry smile. Then, he explained to himself unwillingly, actually, I almost succeeded. However, I was a little anxious in the end. I didn't do it properly. That's why they wanted to rush out like a swarm of bees. Huh. Don't go. I'm serious. Phone. Don't leave me here. I've suppressed myself here, but I still can't handle it. After a while, it will explode. Come back. Sob, sob, sob. Yun Nuoxing's foot slipped, and she almost slipped into the rift next to her. She said to the little angel with a dark expression, "How long has that bastard been suppressed here?" The little angel raised her head slightly and thought for a moment. "I came in less than 2 months after you left." "Then he can be suppressed for another year. Let him stay there." Yun Nuoxing looked at the pale Hui with a faint smile. Ahem. Alright, let's stop messing around. I was wrong this time. I didn't expect such an accident to happen. I was wrong, okay? In the future, I will never do such a high-risk thing alone. Hui raised his hands to show his submission. Yun Nuoxing had a look of disdain on her face, as if she was looking at a maggot. Hui did not know whether to laugh or cry. This time, he was not in the right and could only accept his fate. Of all things to learn, I went to risk my life. After I'm done, I'm still trapped here. If you have the ability, go and risk your life. If you have the ability, come back yourself. You tortured yourself like this and still need others to save you. You are a guardian. Yun Nuoxing walked forward with her arms crossed, and could not help but lecture him. Hui scratched his head and laughed dryly. His face was almost buried in the snake's nest. Looking at his sad face, Yun Nuoxing felt that it was about time to shut up. She wrinkled her nose and asked, "So, what do you want to do?" Hui looked up and saw that Yun Nuoxing and the little angel had walked up to him and were looking at him condescendingly. Hui shrank his neck and pointed downwards. "There is a rule formation of order below. I drew it according to the one that I extracted from the sea of rules in my memory. Theoretically speaking, there shouldn't be any mistake. If it succeeds, it will spread the energy belonging to the god of origin all the way to the void. Then, with the help of the rules of the void, it will spread to the entire 8 elements realm and then affect the primordial realm below. Theoretically speaking, this should be the case, but I don't know why it went wrong. I tried to save the snake for a long time and almost destroyed this rule-manifested space." Yun Nuoxing glanced at the ground below the snake's nest. Under Hui's control, a magic formation slowly emerged on the ground. Just looking at it was dazzling. Just looking at it made Yun Nuoxing dizzy. When she finally finished looking around, she only brought back a mess of information. "I'm afraid this is something that only the Yuanshi realm can come into contact with?" The Guardian's power can do this. It's just drawing a pattern. It's not difficult. It's also verified that it can be used. But I don't know why it went wrong. I don't know if it's... Hui grinned, but his face turned sour halfway. Yun Nuoxing jumped down from the snake's nest with the little angel. She ignored Hui's nagging and squatted on the ground to examine the never-before-seen magic formation. After a while, she reached out her hand and pressed on it. Suddenly, his expression trembled. The origin mark on his body suddenly emerged, and even the energy in his body became a little restless. The little angel quickly squatted down and put a pair of wings on his body. The origin mark is stirring. It seems that it really has something to do with the origin god. Are you okay? No, I'm fine for now. It's just a reaction when I meet an old friend. Yun Nuoxing shook her head and pointed to the ground below. There's a fountain below. It's full of the origin energy. It's because of the origin energy that my energy has changed. Now that I've come into contact with it again. Well, I have a feeling that if I come into contact with the origin energy this time, there won't be the same effect as last time. And there was a desire in his heart. but he did not dare to say it out loud. He was afraid that the little angel would slap him into the ground and turn him upside down. Anyway, he knew that he had a special feeling for the origin energy. It was just a thought. He did not dare to touch it casually. After all, it was the origin energy. The last time he touched it, he used it as a transfer station. The remaining origin energy in his body made him forget what his original energy was like. It took him decades to completely clean it up. Who knew if he would feel anything when he touched it again? And then? What do you want to do? Yun Nuoxing raised her head and roared at the guy who was nagging. I don't know. Yun Nuoxing and the little angel. If you joke again, I'll leave you here, okay? I'm not joking. I don't know what to do either. I've never done this before. I just followed the steps and did it step by step. Who knows? Why don't you try it again? Hui had a troubled look on his face. Who would have the experience of activating the first great deity's protection? It would be the first time for anyone else. Yun Nuoxing's cheeks twitched. Just as he was about to ask how to do it, a light flashed in his mind. Hui had given him the information on how to activate the first-generation great deity's protection. It was indeed a tutorial that was divided into several steps for idiot. It was likely that anyone with the same level of strength would be able to learn it after reading it. It was not that difficult. After that, Hui had been trapped here. If it was really not that difficult, the guardians of the realm of the gods would not have sacrificed themselves to seal him here. Speaking of which, haven't you thought about why this thing exists? Yun Nuoxing lowered her head and looked at the magic circle. She planned to follow the steps and do it again. There really is a tutorial for activating the great deity's protection. The existence of this thing is suspicious. Could it be that the gods of origin knew that they would die one day and the protection would disappear, so they left the tutorial for the successor to activate it again when necessary? I don't think that makes sense. That? No, that's not it. I spent a year organizing the steps. Who would keep that tutorial for no reason? Hui was stunned. He waved his hand and said, It's just some information recorded in the world core and the sea of laws of the realm of the gods. Yun Nuoxing's finger that was fine-tuning the magic circle trembled. She quickly retracted her finger. Her face was dark. Can I ask you something? Is there a problem with your reading ability? No. Hui flashed a bright smile and gave her a thumbs up. There's definitely no problem. I'd rather joke about myself than about you. There's no problem at all. Don't worry. 2 seconds later, his face turned serious and he laughed dryly. Probably. Did you come here with the intention of perishing together with me? Cough cough. I really didn't. Don't worry about it. I'm still waiting here for a what if. Yun Nuoxing looked at him and then at the magic circle on the ground. She muttered a few words and continued what she was doing just now. She couldn't help but mutter, Damn you. You're not even a magic circle master. How can you draw a magic circle of this scale? This magic circle is missing a lot of parts. You even dare to activate it. And it's something of this level. Do you really want to perish together with me? Hui smiled bitterly. I really don't, forget it. If we perish together, then so be it. What's the big deal if I go all out with you? Yun Nuoxing grinned and interrupted him. 6 dark red divine halos appeared behind her. Although she complained a lot, she was not careless at all when she started to act. Hui saw Yun Nuoxing's serious look and couldn't help but sigh. He did want to solve this problem by himself. He knew that the observer's power could not handle certain things well, such as the underlying information and the origin energy. The last time he saw the origin energy left in Yun Nuoxing's body, he was shocked. This time, he wanted to avoid such a situation as much as possible, so he did it by himself. He didn't expect to make a fool of himself. He didn't do it well and even got himself trapped here. In the end, he even called his old friend over. He was very upset. 2 hours later, Yun Nuoshing wiped the sweat from her palms and looked at the magic circle that she had completed. She then looked up at Hui and said, "Other than the magic circle, I can't understand the other things very well. Are you sure you didn't leave any fatal mistakes in those places?" "Probably not." Yun Nuoshing took a deep breath. "Are you reliable or not?" "Of course. I don't know. It's fine if you want me to fight and kill, but how do I know if I can handle this kind of high-tech stuff?" The little angel even had the idea of dragging Yun Nuoshing away. However, the latter's face was dark. He had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Oh no, it would be better to say that he was a guy who was ready to sacrifice himself for the realm of the gods. Seeing that he had been working here for 2 hours, there was bound to be follow-up actions. "I really can't handle the rest. Whether it works or not, it's up to fate." Yun Nuoshing sighed and stomped her feet on the ground. The dark red energy that was full of the power of the natural order surged out from her body and rushed into the magic circle under her feet with the sound of rolling waves. The whole white magic circle was suddenly dyed dark red at this moment, and a huge burst of energy burst out. "At worst, I'll go down and accompany you." Hui saw that Yun Nuoshing was about to make a move and quickly focused. The origin energy that was originally blocked under their feet started to roll again at this moment, but it was not a riot. Instead, it was a movement that was guided by something special. It was running along a trace. At present, it was still very stable, and there was no intention of turning the world upside down. "Feng, it seems that your energy has some affinity with the origin energy after fusing with it. Even when I used the Guardian's power to mobilize it, it didn't run so smoothly." We looked at the traces of the energy flow and could not help but say. The dark red magic circle also moved along with the changes in Yun Nuoshing and the origin energy. Many energy threads emerged from its edge and spread out to the outer circle, condensing into exquisite patterns on the ground. At the same time, he noticed that something in this world where the natural order was materialized was disintegrating. Then, it turned into an aura and floated toward them. On the way, all the colors dissipated and turned into pure white that surged into the magic circle. That was the power of the natural order of this world, the power of the natural order of the realm of the gods. They seemed to know what was going to happen and wanted to help him. We knew that Yun Nuoshing only knew a little about that part of the information. When Yun Nuoshing was running the magic circle, Hui was guiding him from above and monitoring the origin energy that was suppressed under his feet. He felt that everything was calm at the moment, and it was the kind that could not be more calm. He was slightly relieved. Boom! There was a faint tremor in this world, but being in this place, it seemed that they could observe the situation outside. The little angel heard a faint rumble in the modern realm, as if the realm of the gods itself was making uneasy noises. Once again, it attracted everyone's attention, but they didn't know where it was coming from. "There's movement in the realm of the gods," she whispered in a low voice. She turned her head and saw Yun Nuoshing, who was sweating profusely. She was shocked. "Are you okay?" "Don't worry. I'm fine for the time being." Yun Nuoshing took a deep breath and nodded. This was the first time he was running such a powerful magic circle. Haha, a magic circle of the primeval realm. Just by using it a little, he felt that his own energy was pouring down like a river of stars. It was only because his energy capacity was thousands of times more than other people of the same realm that he could withstand such a consumption. If it was someone else, they would have been drained dry by now. Hui stared at the magic circle and the origin energy. He just saw the whole magic circle flicker. The dark red magic circle had just completely come into contact with the origin energy. It was no longer a little touch. This time, it was directly irrigated by the origin energy. It was helping Yun Nuoshing to develop the magic circle, and was ready to crash into the void. "It reminds me of some unpleasant memories," Yun Nuoshing muttered to herself. When she saw the little angel looking at her, she continued, "Previously, when the origin energy flowed through me, I saw something, but it wasn't very clear. It gave me goosebumps." Now the little angel understood. All of her attention and half of her consciousness were hanging on the dark red magic circle. Now that the origin energy was completely connected with the magic circle, it was as if she had jumped into the sea of origin energy again. She did not have any good memories the last time. This time, she came into contact with the origin energy again through the magic circle, which made her tremble with fear. In fact, Yun Nuoxing had already come into contact with the origin energy. She had already touched it when she first started to move the magic circle. There was only a thin layer between her and the origin energy. When she sent out most of her consciousness, she had already touched it. But this time, the origin energy was not running around in her body. It slipped under her feet from time to time, just like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Every time it touched her, she would break out in cold sweat. Although the little angel noticed that something was wrong with her, she did not know what she had encountered. She could only watch from the side. Her consciousness came into contact with the origin energy through the magic circle. This time, she seemed to be able to see the images clearly. When her consciousness crossed this layer of the magic circle, it was like crossing a dividing line. Everything she perceived in the world was refreshed. She fell from an already magical world into another colorful world. She saw countless colors passing by her and flowing away. Every color was a kind of origin energy. There were 100 or 200 of them mixed together, but they did not look out of place. They were like flowing water, like traces of flowing light. Huey's voice seemed to come from above, but it also seemed to come from the top of her consciousness. "Feng, the stability has dropped a little. The magic circle has just been successfully extended. Do you want to take a break first?" Yun Nuoxing took a deep breath and completely calmed herself down. She no longer trembled because of the origin energy poking her from time to time. "If I say I can't stop, would you believe me?" "What?" Hui and the little angel were shocked at the same time. "I'm stuck." Yun Nuoxing gritted his teeth, his face full of sweat. "I'm stuck by this thing." "Forget it, let's not worry about it first. I can still hold on for a while. What should we do next?" "Next? There's no next. The next thing you need to do is to continue guiding. When the accumulated origin energy can rush into the void, it will be considered done," Hui said in a daze. "Are you sure you're okay?" "The problem?" Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly. "It would be strange if there was no problem. When was there ever a time when she handled these things without problems? But now, she could not care less about whether there were problems or not. A weak vibration came again. This time, it came from the part of her consciousness that she had separated. The colorful light in front of her suddenly trembled violently. The whole picture shattered and reformed in an instant. The picture turned into a huge colorful energy ball that was constantly beating like a heart. That energy ball was still vibrating violently. The amplitude of the vibrations on the left and the right were different. Her consciousness was like a piece of duckweed in front of that energy ball. Every time it vibrated, it would make her feel a great pressure. However, it was a pressure of deception. That origin energy seemed to be just scaring her, and did not really intend to do anything to her. "Hui, when you did it last time, did you see the origin energy vibrating? Or rather, did you see the whole space vibrating?" Yun Nuoxing felt uneasy. This feeling scared even herself. Every time this feeling of uneasiness appeared, something would happen. Hui was also stunned when he heard this. He thought for a few seconds and scratched his head. "What space? What vibrating? What are you talking about? Didn't you see? This is the space where the origin energy is stored. Didn't you see it last time?" Yun Nuoxing was sweating more and more. "I saw it, but... Hui was so anxious that he was sweating. "But I didn't see anything. That space at the bottom of the realm of the gods stores the origin energy, but there was nothing there. The space that stores it is a special space built on concepts and laws. You and I can't understand that space for the time being, so we can't see it. Wait a minute, that means. Phone, did you understand something? What did you see in that space? He skipped 3 topics in one sentence. Yun Nuoshing smiled bitterly. He only had time to answer the last question. Just as I said, and there was a bit of resistance and confusion. It was as if I could understand their movements, although they were moving according to the guidance, but now they have returned to their original place in a daze. It was as if they could not understand our actions. You can already see to this extent? Hui had a strange expression on his face. Yun Nuoshing's eyes flickered. This stalemate was not a solution. He could at most last for less than 15 minutes. After that time, if he was still stuck here, he would have to report to the path of reincarnation first. Thinking of this, he looked at the constantly vibrating mass of energy that was as huge as a star. He gritted his teeth and his consciousness rushed towards it. Chapter 1337. Wind. There was the sensation of wind, as if a gentle breeze was brushing past his face. There was light in front of his eyes, and he could also feel some subtle things like gravity, space, and time. These things naturally existed in the real world, but they also existed in this world. It was unknown what these movements represented in this world where the rules were materialized. No, he was not in that world now. He seemed to have rushed into the gathering of the origin energy. The moment he came into contact with it, he seemed to have been shaken, and his consciousness went into a temporary coma. Now, after a while, he woke up and found that the bright and dazzling space in front of him contained a lot of incomprehensible information that was completely in another realm. Inadvertently, some confusion arose in his mind. What was the difference between the origin energy and other energies? Although he had mastered a kind of origin energy, if he really wanted to understand it, in fact, he still had no way to fully understand what it was. He could not very well summarize the difference between the origin energy and other energies. Yun Nuoshing's consciousness sank into this place, and he was thinking of ways to see if he could try to analyze something through this contact. As a result, before he could think of what to do, the space suddenly rumbled, and then he felt that the whole world was collapsing and extending towards a certain place. The suction pulled him and took him somewhere. What is the trajectory of the origin energy? That's right, that magic circle is still in operation, urging the origin energy to follow a certain trajectory. Thinking clearly about this matter, Yun Nuoshing let down some unnecessary vigilance and followed the flow of this colorful origin energy. It was as if he was in a surging river, following the flow of the river. It was just that being in the energy, the actual feeling was more realistic, and he felt a little dizzy from the spinning. Putting aside the other thoughts in his mind, he merged all his consciousness into this ball of energy, trying his best to cover as many places as possible with his senses. His eyebrows slightly furrowed. It's that feeling again, that faintly discernible incomprehension and helplessness. It was like a group of divine champions who obeyed the orders of a certain mortal. They knew that doing so would not end well, but they had to do it. The origin energy had some weak consciousness which surprised him. This weak consciousness would not cause any special changes to it, and there was no movement because of his sudden intrusion. It did not seem to affect anything. It probably made the person or god who used this energy realize that there was a problem in the flow of the energy or something. Generally speaking, it was not a big deal. But this time, he could easily understand the problem between the magic circle and the origin energy. At first, Yun Nuoshing thought that his understanding of the magic circle was not enough. Even if he made some minor adjustments, he could not make the magic circle perfect, and so the origin energy did not know what to do. After all, the origin energy was guided by the primeval magic circle. If the magic circle master controlled the entire process, there would not be such a problem. But he did not know what to do, and could only give all control to the magic circle. Under such circumstances, if there was a problem with the magic circle, there would naturally be no way for it to operate properly. However, when he followed the origin energy around and felt that the origin energy was still in a confused state, he realized that the problem was beyond his expectations. Either there was a problem with the entire magic circle, or there was a problem with the magic circle's purpose of activating the origin energy, so there was no way for it to carry out that command. Either way, these two answers were very troublesome. The former meant that there was a problem with the magic circle. He had done all he could to perfect the part he could understand, and there was no other way. The latter meant that there was something wrong with the protection of the primeval god, and perhaps it could not be activated. There's no way to solve either situation. Is this a dead end? Yun Nuoxing felt a headache, and the pain made him feel a little irritated. He was a little restless, and time passed faster and faster in his anxiety. He felt that there was not much time left, and his consciousness was almost sweating from anxiety. But, splash! His consciousness heard a splashing sound, like the sound of a waterfall crashing down, but he could not see anything in this pure color space, only a single sound. And in this space, Yun Nuoxing suddenly froze. He felt the origin energy again, and this time, there were many emotions in it. There was impatience, indifference, a little impulsiveness, and others. It felt like he had plunged into a nest of sparrows, chattering endlessly. He even had auditory hallucinations, as if he could hear their conversation. What are those idiots up there doing? We've run hundreds of laps here. Are they done yet? I don't know. Anyway, that's the order. Let's run first. I don't know. Who knows how to get rid of them? Those with strong attack power, hurry up and fight them. I'm going to be mentally exhausted if we keep running. Why are we running aimlessly? I remember that we do have a purpose. Yes, there is indeed a mission. Mission. What is it again? What is it? Anyway, let's go and take a look first. That was purely his imagination. After all, the buzzing sound was endless, as if there were 100 mouths here discussing something noisily. The only thing worth noting was that there were no other living things here except for him. The only thing that was communicating was that big mass of colorful light. He thought that they were probably talking. The crackling energy waves were endless, and there was a lot of weak consciousness that kept changing over and over again. However, he did notice something unusual. The origin energy was flowing again, but this time the direction of the flow seemed to have changed. He did not know where it was going. The high-frequency and high-intensity energy flashed, making him a little dizzy. Along the way, it was as if he was riding on clouds and mist, but also as if he was being rolled in a whirlpool. He felt that he had left the area of the magic circle, and he did not know where he was going. A few seconds later, Yun Nuoxing confirmed that her feeling was not wrong. The dark red magic circle suddenly lost all its energy and dimmed down. It maintained its size and turned into a grayish-white color. The roaring energy and movement all disappeared at once. It was quiet all around. Both the little angel and Hui were stunned. Huey's constipated expression suddenly changed, and then became gloomy in a few seconds. What's going on? All the energy has disappeared? How is Maple? Look at Maple, The little angel quickly went to help Yun Nuoxing, but before her hand could reach 5 inches away, she was bounced away by a powerful force. She was a little surprised. That force, it was the smell of origin energy, and it was not the energy that he had. I can't check. What should I do? He's running out of energy. Well, don't worry, I'll go and check, Hui was sweating profusely as he tried to comfort him, but after a moment, he was stunned. This movement, How did the origin energy run to another place? They are flowing towards the distance. I feel Maple's movement, he seems to be following it? Look carefully, the energy loss in Maple's body has stopped. The magic circle has lost the synergistic supply of the two types of energy and lost its effect. Don't worry, let's wait and see. As for Maple, he'll be fine. You see, when that guy mysteriously disappeared, he came back half dead. He's not as embarrassing as me. The little angel thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. That guy's ability to take risks and escape after getting into trouble was unquestionable. Anyway, it seemed that there was nothing they could do now. They could only wait. Countless buzzing sounds seemed to be shouting. This time, in addition to many strange emotional fluctuations, there was also excitement without exception. Here, even if one wanted to imagine something from the clues of a lot of noisy sounds, it was impossible to do so. Yun Nuoxing's forehead was sweating instantly. He paid attention to their movements. In short, they were very excited. The energy fluctuations in the excitement seemed to be the same. He didn't know if it could be understood as a large group of people suddenly running to a place together very excitedly. They seemed to be a little fanatical, and he was an innocent passerby in this fanatical wave. He forced himself to imagine what those guys were doing. A large number of white ducks appeared inexplicably. The buzzing reverberating in his ears turned into a series of quacking sounds that shook the sky. It was so noisy that he felt dizzy. Just when he felt that he would die if he couldn't hold on to the destination and was about to jump out of the car, the whole moving wave suddenly stopped and threw him far away. But for the time being, he was still in this mass of energy. The incessant quacking in his ears turned into a series of frogs that sounded one after another. Found it. Found it. It's here. It's here. What do we have to do? What do we have to do? What do we have to do? I don't know what to do at all. What should we do? Speaking of which, we didn't leave for long. Not much, so what do we have to do? Damn it. Damn it. We don't even remember what we have to do and just rushed out recklessly. Oh, I remember now. I remember now. First of all, we have to be united. No, that's behind. There's a prerequisite in front. We need something, so what is it? I don't know. Don't we have something hanging behind us? It's conscious. It can move. It's alive. It's the breath of the same race. That's it. Throw it up. Throw it up, throw it up. Throw it up. Throw it up. Yun Nuoxing suddenly felt a chill down his spine, because he clearly felt that there was an endless amount of energy that fell on him all at once. He clearly knew that there was a person who wanted to kill him. Well, to be honest, there was some kind of jointly formed will that fell on him. For example, all the humans within a radius of 1,000,000 miles suddenly had the idea of planting trees at the same time, and began to carry it out in the next second. Compared to the idea of a thought, the action was a little bit faster. In other words, the thought had turned into a tide of motivation. In short, before he could react, he suddenly saw a blue ball of light coming out of nowhere in this round and colorful world and attacking him head-on. It directly hit his face and then separated like an octopus to bind his face, neck, shoulders, and entire upper body. Another ball stuck his entire lower body like mud. Then, a large number of balls of light emerged and circled him a few times. One by one, they pressed against his back and lifted him up as if they were lifting something. Yun Nuoxing struggled hard, but he was just a carrier of consciousness. He had strength, but in the face of these spirits, his strength was nothing. I have something to say. Listen to me. We're on the same side. Please let me go. That strange thing is talking la 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 la. Is it talking to us? Can it actually listen to us? What strange words is it saying? I don't understand at all. By the way, the smell of that strange thing is so familiar. Familiar, that's it. Throw it up quickly! Throw it up quickly! United as one. United as an impregnable fortress. I'll throw it! Yun Nuoshing only had time to scream before he saw himself being pushed up by 4 to 6 balls of light. The large ball of light suddenly separated and turned into more than 105-foot-wide balls of energy of different colors that slowly rotated around him. It looked like they were lifting him up to do something and escorting him along the way. Among them, a reddish-black ball of energy that was only a foot in size appeared from the side and landed on his forehead. After a while, it rolled along the track of his body and finally landed on his chest. He suddenly thought of something and his face turned pale. Wait a minute. The reddish-black ball of energy turned left and right and jumped when it heard his voice, as if it was trying to express something. Then, it plunged into his chest. Yun Nuoshing's face turned pale and he almost fainted. Since he didn't really faint, he immediately looked at his body and saw the ball of dark red energy turn into a faint light and disperse into every corner of his body. He wanted to cry but had no tears. These guys were robbing his body again. No, they were seizing the nest. This was his body, his consciousness. Why did these spirits of origin like to enter his body? Holding back the urge to cry, Yun Nuoshing quickly calmed down. He noticed that after the huge ball of light dissipated, the scene in front of him suddenly became clear. He didn't know where they had carried him. The surrounding space was filled with dense light spots that spread to the far end of the horizon. It was like a starry sky but also like a pure void. Yun Nuoshing struggled again, confirming that he was really kidnapped by these strange origin energy essences. He completely gave up the idea of struggling. If his real body came, he could still resist, but now, he could forget about it. Thinking of this, a lot of strange thoughts appeared in his mind. Endless thoughts rose one after another. The wind is bleak, the water is cold. Ah, this is what the devil likes to say. Speaking of which, it doesn't seem too auspicious to think of this now. While he was still struggling with the auspicious and unlucky thoughts, he suddenly noticed that something slowly appeared in front of him and attracted all his attention. It was a green spherical cover covered with a lot of blue, red, yellow, and green stripes. He flew straight towards the cover and took advantage of this short period of time to quickly analyze the thing. But he gave up after trying. This thing was on the same level as the magic circle. As soon as he tried to analyze it, his brain showed signs of burning. Can you at least tell me what you are going to do to me? Cut me into pieces or cut me into sashimi? Steamed, braised, fried and braised? Yun Nuoshing struggled hard for a while, but he couldn't even move a millimeter. At most, he could only move his fingers and toes and move his lip. Buzz! The reddish-black origin energy essence that had just dissipated in his body flickered slightly in his heart. He still felt that it was talking, but he couldn't understand what it was saying. But judging from the trace of emotion that came out of it, it seemed to be comforting him. While he was on the verge of tears and trying to pull himself together, he had been carried to the center of the green mottled cover by a group of origin energy essences. At this moment, he noticed something else. The dense light spots that filled his vision just now were now purple. And he didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the light spots were arranged in a circle around his position at the moment, and they were all over the sky. The origin energy essences that were circling around him brought up a wave of crashing sound. A few energy clusters turned into a sea of energy and circled around the green mottled cover. But more of them were circling around him slowly, watching him with various emotions. Damn it, this scene was like worshipping a corpse. He was familiar with it. Buzz! A buzzing sound once again came from the entire space and smashed towards him. Yun Nuoshing saw that the purple starlight in this space all emitted an inch-long thin thread and landed on his body. In this situation, he felt that his body was going to be pierced into a sieve in the next second. Well, that scary scene didn't happen. What really happened was a scene that made him feel even more uneasy. After those energy beams landed on him, he felt an endless amount of energy rushing into his body in an instant. It was just ordinary energy that filled the void, but the taste was different from all the energy he knew. It had the taste of the great Yuan realm's creation: ginger, onion, garlic, oil, salt, sauce, vinegar. You must have made a mistake. Are you sure this is the next step? No. There seems to be a problem. No. But the records left behind said this. Records are also wrong, right? Forget it. That's it. Yun Nuoshing's spirit was unusually strong. He sensitively felt that some kind of thought that was destroying his psychological balance emerged. All the hair on his body stood straight as if he had been electrocuted. A drop of cold sweat seeped out from his forehead. Buzz. The reddish-black origin energy essence comforted his frightened soul once again. Then, it suddenly released 2 flashes of light outside his body, which made him confused. Received the signal. Go. Yun Nuoshing reacted abruptly and saw the large pile of origin energy essence rushing towards him with an earth-shattering aura. He let out an earth-shattering cry, "No!" Before his voice died away, more than 100 balls of origin energy essence with all the purple starlight plunged into his body. Moreover, they were closely divided into different areas. Yun Nuoshing only saw a colorful flash in front of his eyes. Then, he couldn't feel anything. After a while, his eyes rolled back and his body became stiff. He didn't have time to see that when he fainted, the reddish-black energy that had first entered his body was emitting light everywhere on his body. As the reddish-black light became brighter, the purple starlight in the distance also became bigger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, it drowned him and the entire area covered by the green cover. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.